Chapter 1901. At Charlie's command, the entire Oris Hill underground world sprang into action almost immediately. Don Albert even took to the streets personally, leading his men in the search for any clues about Elaine's whereabouts. Meanwhile, Harold was completely unaware of all this. His only desire was to get revenge on Elaine and send her to the black brick kiln to toil for the rest of her life. This would not only crush the pride of Charlie and Claire but would also serve as payback for himself and his mother. Christopher was equally thrilled. His hatred for Elaine had already reached a boiling point. Among all of Charlie's family members, he despised Elaine the most. The root of his hatred stemmed primarily from the fact that Hannah had ended up in the black coal kiln entirely because of Elaine. While there, Hannah, who was pregnant, had even contracted a venereal disease. As if that weren't enough, Elaine had gone out of her way to flaunt her infidelities, hanging dozens of green hats on the wall to constantly remind Christopher of the humiliation Hannah had brought him. This torment had gone on for so long that it had become utterly unbearable. At that moment, the father and son pair, along with their accomplices, dragged Elaine and Cynthia into an abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of the city. The warehouse was spacious enough for them to drive the van straight inside. As soon as the vehicle stopped, Harold was the first to jump out, violently yanking Elaine out of the car. Christopher looked down at her with a sneer and mocked coldly, "Elaine, Elaine, did you ever think you'd end up like this?" Fear overwhelmed Elaine, but with her mouth gagged, she could only whimper helplessly. Without any hesitation, Christopher tore the cloth from her mouth. Elaine immediately screamed, "Christopher! You must be out of your fucking mind to kidnap me! Just wait, my son-in-law Charlie can wipe you out anytime." "Oh really?" Christopher sneered as he raised his hand and slapped her hard across the face. "Is this the time for you to act tough? Do you think you're still lounging on your terrace?" Elaine refused to back down and shouted, "Just you wait, Christopher. My son-in-law knows plenty of powerful people in Oris Hill. They'll make you pay for this." Christopher burst into laughter, his eyes filled with cruelty. "You think Charlie is coming to save you? Let me tell you why I brought you here. First, I'm letting a group of young men have their fun with you, and I'll record everything and upload it online to completely ruin your reputation. Second, I'm sending you to the black brick factory to work until you fucking die. You sent Hannah there, now I'll make you pay 100 times over." Hearing this, Elaine was instantly paralyzed with terror. She never imagined Christopher could come up with something so vicious and inhumane. Desperately trying to reason with him, she cried out, "Big brother, you shouldn't hate me this much. I never intended to hurt my sister. If she hadn't tried to frame me first, I wouldn't have done anything to your family or your son-in-law's villa." Christopher raised his hand again and slapped her fiercely, roaring, "Then what about all those green hats you hung up? How the hell do you explain that?" Elaine hurriedly replied, "I really regret it, big brother. Please, I'm your younger sister. Let me go just this once, and I swear I'll destroy every single green hat the moment I get back." Christopher sneered coldly. "Now you admit you were wrong. Too fucking late. I have no intention of saving you today." Standing nearby, Harold leaned closer and asked in a low voice, "Dad, when do we let them start having their fun?" Christopher replied calmly, "Don't rush. When Mr. Webb arrives, he'll want to see everything with his own eyes." Chapter 1902. Harold asked again, "What about the woman still in the car?" "At the time, tying her up was the only option, but we don't even know who she is." Christopher smacked his lips and said indifferently, "Don't worry. Deal with Elaine first. If that doesn't work out, we'll just send that woman to the black brick kiln as well." Meanwhile, the Wade family received shocking news about Cynthia's kidnapping. The moment he heard this, Elder Wade flew into a rage. He grabbed his treasured blue and white plum vase and hurled it across the living room, roaring, "With the power and status of the Wade family in this country, who the hell dares to kidnap one of our direct family members? This is outrageous." The three brothers, Corin, Miles, and William, exchanged glances but remained silent. Cynthia's sudden kidnapping didn't worry them at all. Instead, it secretly filled them with anticipation and excitement. None of the three brothers had any affection for Cynthia. The reason was simple, it all came down to self-interest. If Cynthia had behaved like Sierra, the Wade family's youngest daughter, who married well and lived quietly with her husband, the brothers would have had no objections to her. But Cynthia had married, failed to integrate into her husband's family, and then shamelessly returned to the Wade household after separating, demanding a share of the family's wealth. This alone made the three brothers detest her. On top of that, Cynthia's personality was cold and serious. She paid no attention to her brothers' feelings and cared only about gaining their father's favor. She often deliberately provoked and undermined them just to appear more competent in Elder Wade's eyes, which only deepened their resentment. Now that she had been kidnapped, wasn't this a gift from heaven? Although they never said it out loud, all three brothers secretly shared the same wish, that the kidnappers would simply kill Cynthia and ensure she never returned. Elder Wade, however, was deeply unsettled. Recently, he had begun to see Cynthia as not only capable but also obedient, far more so than his three sons, especially Corin, who had shown increasing submission. Now, she had defied him by traveling to Oris Hill to look for Charlie, only to get kidnapped and endanger her life, bringing disgrace to the Wade family. Elder Wade found this completely unacceptable. Without hesitation, he immediately called Isaac Cameron to ask about the situation. Isaac Cameron explained everything clearly, recounting how Cynthia and Elaine had been abducted and detailing the circumstances to Elder Wade. After listening, Elder Wade asked coldly, "Isaac Cameron, do you think the kidnappers are targeting Cynthia or Elaine?" Isaac replied respectfully, "Sir, it's hard to determine at the moment. Cynthia has a high profile, so it's possible someone kidnapped her for ransom. However, Charlie's mother-in-law has an extremely abrasive personality and has offended many people, so revenge against her is also very likely. We'll only know the truth once we find them." Elder Wade then issued his order in an icy tone. "Isaac Cameron, I have two demands. First, Cynthia must be rescued at all costs. If anything happens to her, you'll bear full responsibility. Second, capture Cynthia's bodyguard, break his hands and feet, and drag him back to the Wade family to receive punishment." Chapter 1903. Isaac Cameron was keenly aware that Cynthia needed to face the consequences of her own actions. If Cynthia could ultimately avoid danger, everything would turn out fine. However, if she truly had serious issues to confront, her once bright future could completely collapse. What made the situation even more urgent was the fact that Charlie's mother-in-law had disappeared together with Cynthia. As a result, Isaac intensified his search efforts, even reallocating the entire Shangri-La security team to locate Cynthia and Elaine as quickly as possible. Unfortunately, the investigation had to start from the beauty salon, and with very few usable clues, it was unlikely that they would find the victims immediately. At the same time, Charlie had already left home and was on his way to the beauty salon to meet Isaac Cameron. At that moment, two major concerns weighed heavily on his mind. First, he worried that Cynthia might have revealed his true identity to Elaine. Second, he feared that Elaine might have already fallen into the hands of ruthless kidnappers. To be honest, Charlie did not harbor much familial affection for Elaine. She had spent more than 3 years bullying, humiliating, and tormenting him, only showing signs of change very recently. If he had a choice, Charlie would much rather see Elaine disappear completely. However, he could not ignore Claire. Claire was naturally kind-hearted and had always treated Elaine with respect. If Elaine were to disappear without a trace, Claire would be devastated. The last time Elaine was detained, she had only been missing for a few days, yet Claire had nearly lost her mind. If anything truly happened to Elaine now, Claire's emotional collapse would be far worse. With the new year approaching, the idea of Elaine encountering serious trouble at such a time filled Charlie with unease, knowing it would cast a dark shadow over the entire family. For this reason, Charlie remained determined to find and rescue Elaine as soon as possible. Meanwhile, in an abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of the city, Elaine and Cynthia were tied up together. The Wilson family deliberately kept Elaine awake, mainly to ensure that Donald could come over to personally inspect the situation. After all, this kind of operation was both time-sensitive and risky. The Wilson family had already received substantial benefits from Donald, yet they had never fully allowed the Charlie family to cooperate in business according to Donald's demands, which left him feeling uneasy. That unease stemmed from a critical fact: the Thompson First villa they were living in did not belong to them. It had been lent to them by Donald. Furthermore, Donald's investment in the Wilson Group was never guaranteed. He could withdraw his capital at any time, instantly leaving the Wilson family bankrupt. Because of this, the Wilson family was desperate to curry favor with Donald and secure even more benefits from the Webb family. As Donald rushed toward the warehouse, excitement surged through him. Although he had recently been focused on restoring the Webb family's standing and had not actively targeted Charlie, his hatred for Charlie had never diminished in the slightest. Chapter 1904. This time, Donald learned that Christopher had decided to target Charlie's mother-in-law first. Naturally, this news thrilled him. Unwilling to miss such a spectacle, he immediately ordered his men to drive him to the warehouse so he could witness everything firsthand. As soon as they arrived, Harold hurriedly opened the warehouse doors, allowing Donald's Rolls-Royce to drive straight inside. Christopher quickly got out of the car and rushed forward, personally opening the rear door for Donald. As the door opened, Christopher bowed deeply and greeted him respectfully. "Mr. Webb, you're here." Donald nodded slightly, then his gaze fell upon Elaine, who was tied back to back with Cynthia on the ground. A sinister smile appeared on his face as he said, "So this is Charlie's mother-in-law?" "Yes," Christopher replied resentfully. "This woman, the #1 vixen in the world, is as cheap as they come. I'll deal with her later and make sure you're satisfied, Mr. Webb." Hearing this, Elaine panicked and begged desperately, "Please let me go. I have no grudge against you. Why are you treating me like this?" Donald replied coldly, "No grudge. Do you even realize that your son-in-law Charlie is my sworn enemy? Now that you've fallen into my hands, don't blame me for being ruthless. Blame yourself for choosing such a son-in-law." Elaine was on the verge of a mental breakdown as she cried out, "I'm innocent. Charlie wasn't the son-in-law I chose. He was arranged by the old man of the Wilson family. I opposed it from the beginning, but that old bastard refused to listen." Donald snorted disdainfully. "Save your excuses. Anyone connected to Charlie is nothing but an eyesore to me." His expression became more animated as he continued regretfully, "It's a shame you're only his mother-in-law and not part of his immediate family. If I could kill one of his close relatives in front of him, it would be even more satisfying." As soon as Donald finished speaking, Elaine felt the woman tied to her tremble violently. Cynthia was completely terrified. She had initially thought this was merely a conflict involving Elaine. Only now did she realize that she had been dragged into a far larger vendetta, Charlie's personal enemy. Worse still, Donald was openly lamenting the lack of an opportunity to kill one of Charlie's immediate family members. "Aren't I immediate family? I'm Charlie's aunt." At that moment, Donald turned to Christopher and asked, "Old Wilson, when are you planning to tie up Charlie's wife?" Christopher hesitated and replied awkwardly, "Mr. Webb, Claire is my niece. I really can't bring myself to do that." Donald waved his hand dismissively. "I'm not interested in killing his wife. She's reserved for last. Before killing Charlie, I want him to personally witness the death of someone close to him." After a brief pause, he added, "What I mean is, let's kill off one of his relatives first to whet my appetite. Charlie has no parents, so there shouldn't be any uncles or aunts, right?" Christopher thought for a moment before replying, "Charlie has always been an orphan. I've never heard of any immediate relatives. They should have died long ago." Donald sighed deeply. "What a pity." Suddenly, Elaine's eyes lit up as an idea struck her. She shouted, "I know. Charlie does have an immediate family member. The woman tied to me is Charlie's aunt. If you want revenge, kill her. That would hurt Charlie far more than killing me." Cynthia felt her heart nearly stop. She screamed inwardly, "When I left home, Father specifically warned me not to let Elaine find out about my Wade family identity. I was terrified she would exploit it if she knew. But how the hell does Elaine know I'm Charlie's aunt?" Chapter 1905. Elaine had absolutely no idea who Cynthia really was. She didn't even know Cynthia's surname, let alone her background. When Elaine claimed that Cynthia was Charlie's aunt, it was complete nonsense. This lie was born purely out of fear after hearing Donald's threatening words. Afraid that Donald might kill her, Elaine thought to herself, since this bastard wants to vent his anger on someone from Charlie's family, I might as well throw this woman under the bus. Not only will it save my life, but I can also get back at her for humiliating me and confronting me. This bitch dared to lecture me. She even tricked me with a fake check, trying to get me to convince my daughter to dump Charlie. It serves her right if I label her as Charlie's aunt. What Elaine never expected was that her desperate lie was actually close to the truth. Donald was stunned by her claim and frowned. Elaine, are you fucking serious? You really think she's Charlie's aunt? Of course. Elaine replied without the slightest hesitation. This woman approached me at the beauty salon and offered me a check for $100 million, asking me to persuade my daughter to break up with Charlie. Hearing this, Donald walked over to Cynthia and examined her carefully from head to toe. He could tell at a glance that she was well-dressed and clearly not an ordinary woman, but he didn't recognize her face at all. That wasn't surprising. Although the Wade family was famous, they kept an extremely low profile for security reasons. Unless someone was part of Eastcliffe's top elite circle, there was no chance they would ever meet a Wade family member in person. On top of that, the media never revealed any personal information about the Wade family. So even though Donald had long known about the Wade family, he didn't actually recognize any of its members. Naturally, he failed to identify Cynthia standing in front of him. Donald suddenly ripped the towel out of Cynthia's mouth and asked coldly, "Are you Charlie's aunt?" Cynthia trembled violently and shook her head frantically. "No. I'm not Charlie's aunt. I have nothing to do with him." Elaine immediately shouted in rage, "Bullshit. If you're not related to Charlie, then why the hell were you trying to make my daughter leave him?" Cynthia panicked and couldn't find the right words. She remembered Donald's earlier threat about killing Charlie's family members. If he found out she was truly Charlie's aunt, she was certain he wouldn't hesitate to kill her on the spot. That was why she absolutely refused to admit it. She didn't even dare to reveal her Wade family identity, fearing that if Donald discovered the truth, it might cost her life. Seeing her hesitation, Donald completely lost his patience. He raised his hand and slapped Cynthia hard across the face, snarling through clenched teeth, still denying it. "Fine. I'll fucking kill you." Cynthia's face turned deathly pale as she cried out, "I swear I'm not related to Charlie. I just think he's handsome and capable, and I want him to be my son-in-law." Chapter 1906. Fart. Before Elaine could even react, Donald slapped Cynthia again and roared, "Do you really think I'm a fucking idiot? Charlie is married, don't you know that?" "I know," Cynthia sobbed. "That's exactly why I had to act. I wanted to separate Charlie from Claire first so my daughter would have a chance." Donald sneered coldly. "You're a fucking liar. I can tell just by looking at your eyes, you're still hiding something." Cynthia was completely on edge, her heart pounding like it was about to burst out of her chest. The truth was, she didn't have strong mental fortitude at all. Her past arrogance didn't come from inner strength, it came from the Wade family's overwhelming influence, which allowed her to act recklessly without fear of consequences. But this wasn't Eastcliff. And she had seriously underestimated Donald's hatred for Charlie. At that moment, Donald was determined to teach Charlie a brutal lesson, or even kill him outright. There was no way he would calmly reason with Cynthia. Unless she could clearly prove that she wasn't Charlie's aunt, Donald would rather kill her than let her walk away. With a trembling voice, Cynthia forced herself to say, "Sir, since you hate Charlie so much, you must know he grew up as an orphan in an orphanage. How could I possibly be his aunt? If I were, how could I have allowed my nephew to stay in an orphanage for so many years?" Donald sneered and gritted his teeth. "What's so impossible about that? When my useless brother-in-law died, he left behind a little girl. She was my wife's niece and called her aunt too. My wife wanted to take her in, but I refused. So she stayed in the orphanage. Doesn't that sound familiar?" Cynthia was instantly stunned and completely at a loss for words. Just then, Harold, who had been rummaging through Cynthia's handbag, pulled out an identification document from her wallet. He handed it to Donald expressionlessly. "Mr. Webb, take a look. This woman's name is Cynthia Wade. She's from Eastcliff." Donald's face darkened immediately. The surname Wade wasn't rare, but when combined with Eastcliff and Charlie, everything clicked in his mind almost instantly. In that moment, Donald became absolutely certain, this woman really was Charlie's aunt. Rage exploded within him. He grabbed Cynthia by the hair and smashed his fist into her face repeatedly until blood spilled from her mouth. "You've got a lot of fucking nerve," he snarled viciously. "Do you really think I'm stupid, Cynthia?" After the brutal beating, Cynthia was on the verge of a complete mental breakdown. "Mr. Webb, please let me go," she cried hysterically. "I have no grudge against you. Why are you doing this to me? If Charlie offended you, then go after him. Don't kill me, please." Even now, Cynthia still refused to reveal her true identity as her final trump card. She knew that once Donald learned the full truth, he might become even more determined to kill Charlie. So she chose to endure everything for as long as she could. Only when she truly had no other option would she use her identity as her last lifeline. Donald sneered cruelly. "You say you have no grievances with me? Let me tell you this, anyone related to Charlie is my enemy. One of you is Charlie's aunt, the other is his mother-in-law. Neither of you is walking out of here alive." He suddenly turned and shouted at a nearby bodyguard, "A Mayo. Drag Charlie's aunt over here and fucking shoot her." Chapter 1907. Donald's furious roar sent a violent shock through Cynthia, making her feel as though her entire body had been shattered. Overwhelmed by the pressure and terror he radiated, Cynthia completely lost control and ended up urinating in her pants on the spot. Because she and Elaine were tied back to back, the urine quickly soaked the ground beneath them, spreading outward. Elaine suddenly realized that the area where she was sitting had become wet, and a foul stench filled the air. Startled and disgusted, she struggled violently and cursed, "What the hell is wrong with you? That's disgusting. Of all the damn times to piss yourself, you choose now." Cynthia had completely collapsed. The dignity and pride she had cultivated for decades as a wealthy and powerful woman were utterly destroyed in this instant. Through her tears, she looked at Donald and begged desperately, "Mr. Webb, please don't kill me. I am Cynthia Wade, the eldest daughter of the Wade family in Eastcliff. If you let me go, I can give you a lot of money. My father, Nathaniel Wade, will pay you handsomely." Donald froze for a moment, stunned, and asked coldly, "You say you're the eldest daughter of the Wade family?" Cynthia nodded frantically, crying, "Yes. It's true. I really am." Donald pressed again, "So Nathaniel Wade is your father?" "Yes." Cynthia sobbed. "Nathaniel Wade is my father." Donald had never heard of Cynthia herself, but Nathaniel Wade was a name known throughout the entire country. The moment Cynthia claimed to be Lord Wade's daughter, Donald's first reaction was disbelief. "Impossible," he sneered. He looked her up and down coldly and said, "You just pissed yourself like a scared animal. Take a good look at yourself, do you look like someone from the Wade family?" Cynthia cried in despair, "Please believe me. I really am from the Wade family." Donald replied indifferently, "Even if you really are a Wade, why would a dignified young lady like you come all the way to Oris Hill?" Cynthia stammered, I came to look for Charlie." Donald burst into laughter. "Charlie? That useless live-in son-in-law who plays feng shui tricks? Don't tell me you think he's part of the Wade family too." Cynthia cried out urgently, "It's true. Charlie really is one of us. He's my second brother's son, my father's grandson." Elaine momentarily forgot the filth beneath her and shouted in shock, "What the hell did you just say? You're saying Charlie is the grandson of the Wade family in Eastcliff?" Cynthia nodded desperately. "Yes. Charlie lived in Eastcliff when he was young. Later, because of certain events, he moved to Oris Hill with his parents. After they died, he ended up in the Oris Hill Welfare Institute." "That's bullshit," Elaine interrupted angrily. "If Charlie were really a young master of the Wade family, how the hell could he have grown up in an orphanage?" He was picked up at a construction site by my father-in-law while he was working. And now you want me to believe he's the heir of the Eastcliff Wade family? I might as well say I'm the Queen Mother. Donald sneered coldly. What you're saying doesn't make sense either. If Charlie really had such a powerful background, how could he have ended up so miserable? Christopher, feeling increasingly uncomfortable, hurriedly interjected, Mr. Webb, maybe this line of questioning isn't appropriate. Chapter 1908. That's enough, Mr. Webb, Harold, who had been standing to the side, spoke up cautiously. The Wilson family in Orris Hill is at least a middle-class family. We're not that bad. Donald shot him a vicious glare and snapped, middle class? Your sister knelt down and begged that old bastard Kenneth Wilson. And your mother? She's fucking the overseer at the black coal mine. Christopher's face burned with shame, and he wished the ground would swallow him whole. Harold felt just as humiliated, wishing he could disappear on the spot. Donald showed no restraint and continued sneering, your family sold off the TV in the master villa, and you still dare talk about dignity? Your grandma ran away, and Charlie's household is stealing foreign daffodils to make dumplings. Do you even know how much 2 caddies of leeks cost at the fucking market? Your entire family is a joke. Christopher and Harold were completely speechless. What Donald said was harsh, but true. Ever since the Wilson family fell from power, they had done countless shameful and disgraceful things. Listing them all out would only further destroy whatever dignity they had left. Cynthia felt her heart sink into despair. She had hoped that revealing her identity, and Charlie's background, would save her. Instead, it had turned into a vicious verbal slaughter aimed at the Wilson family. With tears streaming down her face, she looked at Donald sincerely and said, Big brother. I swear everything I said is true. I guarantee it. Please, for the sake of the Wade family, let me go. Meanwhile, Charlie was already aboard Isaac Cameron's helicopter, speeding toward the outskirts of the city. Christopher and Harold were not particularly clever criminals, making it easy for Isaac Cameron's men to trace their movements. Through surveillance footage and traffic monitoring, they quickly identified the van and followed its route. Once they confirmed that the group was hiding in an abandoned warehouse in the suburbs, Isaac Cameron immediately mobilized a large rescue team. Charlie naturally joined them. As the helicopter cut through the air, Charlie sat silently in the cabin, his expression heavy with worry. Seeing this, Isaac Cameron quickly reassured him, Young master, we'll arrive in a few minutes. Your mother-in-law and aunt shouldn't be in immediate danger. Charlie rubbed his nose and sighed softly. Christopher and Harold are most likely working for Donald. I can guess how they're treating Elaine. They'll probably torment her first before dumping her in a place like the black coal mine. I'm not too worried about them killing her outright. Isaac Cameron nodded. Your aunt is the eldest daughter of the Wade family. If Donald is behind this and she reveals her identity, he shouldn't dare go too far. She should be safe. Charlie smacked his lips and said in a low voice, What I'm worried about is exactly that, if my aunt reveals her identity. If she does, she'll definitely expose mine as well. I don't want anyone knowing I'm connected to the Wade family. Isaac Cameron asked quickly, What if your aunt has already said it? Charlie replied coldly, If she has, then she must be suffering pretty badly right now. Chapter 1909. At this moment, in an abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of the city, Cynthia, who had been keeping her identity hidden, realized that she could no longer remain silent. Desperate to convince Donald of the truth, she exclaimed, Mr. Webb, I truly am the eldest daughter of the Wade family from Eastcliff. As for your comment about Charlie growing up in an orphanage, I won't deny it. His situation is very special. His father was Bruce Wade, the legendary Eastcliff Tiger. Surely you've heard of him? Donald felt a sudden stir in his heart. He thought to himself, Bruce? He was my idol when I was young. Bruce Wade was a true powerhouse who pushed the Wade family to the peak of the nation's business world, even overshadowing old European and American families like the Rothschilds. In the domestic business circle, he was practically a god. It's such a pity he died so young. Otherwise, his future would have been limitless. As these thoughts flashed through his mind, Donald frowned at Cynthia and asked, "Are you saying that Charlie is Bruce Wade's son? What proof do you have?" Cynthia answered without hesitation, "Can't you see how much they look alike? They're practically identical. What more proof do you need?" Donald snorted coldly. "That's complete nonsense. I don't even know what Bruce looked like." Bruce Wade had died 18 years ago, when the internet in China was still in its infancy. Information about him was mostly spread through television and newspapers. However, families like the Wades rarely exposed themselves to the public eye. As a result, details about such top families were mostly passed around privately among the upper class. Back then, Donald had been in Eastcliff, but he never had the chance to meet Bruce in person. He had only heard countless stories about Bruce's legendary achievements. How could he possibly know that Charlie and Bruce looked almost exactly alike? Left with no other option, Cynthia continued urgently, "You saw my ID card earlier. My name is Cynthia, and I'm a native of Eastcliff. My surname is Wade. I have 2 older brothers and 2 younger brothers. The eldest is Corin, the second is Bruce, the third is Miles, and the youngest is William. I also have a younger sister named Sierra. Everything I said is true. I really am a member of the Wade family." Donald's frown deepened. Bruce Wade had already become a living legend, and Cynthia was well aware of that fact. Donald couldn't help but think, could this woman actually be telling the truth? If that's the case, I might have caused a massive disaster today. If the Wade family investigates this matter, the Webb family could be finished. Seeing the conflicted look on Donald's face and the anxiety he was struggling to conceal, Harold, who was standing nearby, was taken aback. He leaned toward Christopher and asked in a low voice, "Dad, do you really think Charlie is from the Wade family?" Christopher frowned and replied solemnly, I don't know. At first glance, it seems impossible. But the more I think about it, the more it feels like her story might not be completely made up. After all, where did she suddenly come from? Even if she isn't Charlie's aunt, she must have some kind of connection to him. Harold nodded repeatedly. That actually makes sense. Meanwhile, Elaine was deep in thought. Although she had initially sneered at Cynthia's words, the more Cynthia spoke, the more believable everything sounded. Elaine couldn't help wondering, could it be true that my useless son-in-law actually comes from a top-tier family? If that's the case, wouldn't my future be incredibly bright? A surge of excitement rose in her chest, but it was quickly drowned out by fear and despair. Looking at the menacing figures surrounding her, Elaine cried bitterly in her heart, why is my life so miserable? Just when my son-in-law finally seems to have some real potential, I end up in this situation. If they send me to that place, what will become of me? Will Charlie even come to save me? Chapter 1910. As Elaine reflected on everything that had happened, a painful realization suddenly struck her: she had treated Charlie far too cruelly in the past. Scenes from the past replayed vividly in her mind: her arrogance, her constant shouting, her bullying, and her shameless insults toward Charlie. The crushing weight of regret pressed heavily on her chest. She couldn't stop herself from thinking, what if Charlie still hates me? What if this is exactly what he wants, to see me suffer? If he truly wants to abandon me, he wouldn't lift a finger to help. Am I really going to slave away in that damn black brick kiln for the rest of my life? Overwhelmed by fear and remorse, Elaine finally broke down and burst into tears. At the same time, Donald turned to Cynthia and asked in a deep voice, since you insist that you're a member of the Wade family, what proof can you show me? Cynthia answered immediately, I have my checkbook and my personal signature stamp in my bag. You're welcome to verify them. Donald turned his head toward Harold and asked, where is her bag? Harold quickly went to the van and returned with Cynthia's exquisitely crafted, top-tier Hermes bag. The moment Donald saw the bag, his heart skipped a beat. Elaine had no idea how valuable it was, but Donald recognized it instantly. His late wife, Gina, had once attended the Hermes Spring exhibition, where this very bag had been the centerpiece. According to Hermes' official introduction, the bag had been handcrafted by the brand's most elite artisans. Only one such piece existed in the world, making it priceless. Back then, Xenia had fallen in love with the bag at first sight. Donald had gone to great lengths to try to acquire it for her, only to learn that it had already been reserved by a major celebrity from Eastcliff, leaving no possibility for others to purchase it. Xenia had refused to give up and repeatedly urged Donald to find a way to get it. In the end, a senior Hermes executive personally advised Donald to let the matter go, explaining that the buyer was a member of an extremely powerful Eastcliff family, someone they could not afford to offend. Knowing that competing with such a figure was pointless, Donald had bought Xenia many other Hermes items to appease her. Now, seeing that same bag in front of him, Donald instantly understood who Cynthia really was. A wave of despair surged through his heart. How the hell did things turn out like this? Today, the Wilson family was desperately trying to curry favor with me. Just because they wanted to pursue Elaine, they came here to mock Charlie's downfall. Who could have imagined that they'd end up offending the eldest daughter of the Wade family instead? This is someone from the Wade family. No matter how stupid the Wilsons are, how could someone of her status get tangled up with them? And how could she not even have bodyguards with her? As these thoughts raced through his mind, Harold had already handed Cynthia's bag over with both hands. He said respectfully, "Mr. Webb, I really think you shouldn't believe this woman so easily. When we went to capture Elaine, she was clearly conspiring with her. It doesn't make sense that someone of her standing would be walking around without a single bodyguard." Cynthia immediately retorted angrily, "I did bring bodyguards. I had 2 bodyguards and an assistant with me. But when I went to the beauty salon to talk to Elaine about Charlie, I didn't want her to discover my identity, so I told my bodyguards to wait outside." Her anger continued to rise as she added, "I never expected the owner of that beauty salon to be in cahoots with you people." Chapter 1911. Donald cautiously opened Cynthia's Hermes bag, his heart pounding with apprehension. Inside, aside from the checkbook, he found a name stamp bearing Cynthia's name. Ordinarily, name stamps were not items that common people would have made, nor were they something most people needed. However, for executives and senior figures within companies, such stamps were almost essential. Many financial transactions required a corresponding personal seal, especially when cashing checks. More importantly, the font used on these stamps was often unique. With just one glance, Donald could clearly read the engraved words, "Cynthia Wade." The moment he saw the name stamp, Donald's blood pressure skyrocketed. His mind went blank, and he nearly lost his footing. At that instant, despair engulfed him, like ordering the Wilson family and their idiot son to fetch a dog, only for them to drag back a ferocious tiger instead. Even worse, this tiger was backed by an overwhelmingly powerful family. Donald cursed inwardly, "What the hell is going on? I only wanted to show Elaine how to curry favor with the young lady of the Wade family, and now I've stepped straight into a fucking disaster. This mess was caused by Christopher and Harold acting like brainless idiots, yet Cynthia thinks I'm the one behind all of it." Seeing the conflict and panic written all over Donald's face, Cynthia immediately understood that he needed reassurance. She spoke calmly but firmly, "Mr. Webb, I know your target was Elaine, not me. This was just a misunderstanding. If you let me go today, I promise I won't pursue this matter. In the future, I'm willing to facilitate cooperation between the Wade family and the Webb family. What do you think?" Her words struck Donald like a hammer. After thinking it through, he realized he only had 2 choices. The first was to take the extreme route and kill Cynthia on the spot. The second was to back down immediately and try to salvage a relationship with the Wade family. However, if he chose the first option, he would have to guarantee that the Wade family would never be able to trace the incident back to him. With that thought in mind, Donald waved at Christopher and said coldly, "Old Wilson, come over here." Christopher immediately followed him. When they reached the warehouse entrance, Christopher leaned closer and asked in a low voice, "Did you deliberately avoid surveillance cameras when you brought those 2 women here?" "No," Christopher said, shaking his head. "After we grabbed them from the beauty salon, the driver followed the GPS straight here. The entire route was planned by the navigation system." Donald's legs nearly gave out. Seeing this, Christopher quickly grabbed him and asked, "Mr. Webb, what's wrong?" Donald exploded, waving his hands angrily. Didn't it ever cross your fucking mind to find a secluded spot to switch cars along the way? Switch cars? Christopher looked completely baffled. Mr. Webb, I didn't think that was necessary. They're just two women. We just stuffed them into the car and drove over. Then Christopher added, but I'll be honest, that woman named Cynthia really feels off. The way she talks almost convinced me earlier, but something about her just doesn't sit right with me. Chapter 19:12. After a short pause, Christopher spoke again, his voice rising. Think about it, Mr. Webb. If this Cynthia is really the eldest daughter of that top-tier Eastcliff family, what the hell is she doing in Oris Hill? And everything she said about Charlie is complete bullshit. Before Charlie entered our house, he was just a useless laborer living on a construction site, eating basic meals and sleeping in group dorms, one poor bastard among a pile of others. Hell, back then he probably couldn't even afford toilet paper. How could someone like that be the heir of a rich family? What kind of wealthy family abandons their child for so many damn years? Donald listened quietly, his expression dark and unreadable. He didn't respond to Christopher at all. Although Christopher's words sounded reasonable on the surface, they were nothing more than speculation. Donald, however, had personally seen Cynthia's checkbook and name stamp. Both were authentic and neither could be forged. Combined with her exclusive Hermes limited edition bag, it was almost certain that she really was Cynthia Wade. What troubled Donald now was how he should deal with her. He had no faith whatsoever in Cynthia's so-called promise. He didn't understand how people from the uppermost elite thought. She claimed she wouldn't pursue the matter, but the first thing that crossed Donald's mind was that she might want him dead the moment she got away. Still, acting against her right now was far too dangerous. Christopher and Harold had been unbelievably careless. They had dragged the women here directly, tied up, without switching vehicles even once. If traffic surveillance footage was checked carefully, tracing their car would be easy. Reinforcements might already be on the way. The thought made Donald's scalp tingle. He immediately made up his mind. Since I can't touch Cynthia, I have to flip this situation at all costs. With resolve, he said to Christopher, "Come on. Follow me inside." Christopher nodded quickly and followed him back into the warehouse. As soon as they entered, Donald walked straight toward Cynthia. As he approached her, shame surged through his chest, and he said apologetically, "Madam Wade, everything that happened today was a complete misunderstanding. Christopher and Harold, the stupid father and son pair, were targeting Charlie's mother-in-law, Elaine. That woman is the real troublemaker. I never imagined they would mistakenly abduct you. I sincerely apologize." Cynthia finally let out a long breath of relief. At that moment, her emotions surged so violently that she nearly burst into tears. Harold, standing nearby, was completely confused. He asked, "Mr. Webb, what's going on? What's going on?" Donald roared, grabbing Harold by the collar and slapping him hard across the face as he cursed, "You still have the nerve to ask? This entire fucking mess was caused by your useless father. If you two hadn't been obsessed with Elaine, Madam Wade wouldn't have been dragged into this at all." Still shaking with anger, Donald continued berating them. "Thank God I came here today. If I hadn't, and you idiots had done something reckless to Madam Wade, I would have been forced to deal with both of you myself. A dog that bites its own master deserves to be beaten to death." Harold, stunned and humiliated, protested, "Mr. Webb, what do you mean? We grabbed Elaine for you." "For me?" Donald exploded. "What the fuck does this have to do with me?" With that, he turned sharply and shouted at the surrounding bodyguards, "Come here. Grab this bastard by the arms." Chapter 19:13. Harold's entire body went limp the moment he heard those words. As Donald's bodyguards advanced, Harold, terrified, staggered toward Donald while backing away, shouting nervously, "Mr. Webb, what's going on? We didn't do this for you. You don't need to reward us. Why are you breaking my arms?" Donald, burning with rage, snapped back, "If you dare think for even a second that this was for me, I'll break your fucking legs too." Harold was scared out of his wits. Before he could escape, several burly bodyguards slammed him to the ground. Donald's men were ruthless and decisive, executing orders without hesitation. As Harold was forced down, one of them grabbed a brick from the ground and smashed it violently onto his shoulder. Harold howled in agony, but before his scream could even finish, another crushing blow landed on his other shoulder, nearly knocking him unconscious. Seeing his son being beaten half to death, Christopher rushed forward in desperation. "Mr. Webb! Mr. Webb! My son didn't mean any harm. Even if he did something wrong, this is far too much." Donald clenched his teeth and barked coldly, "This old bastard talks too much. Drag him over here and break both of his arms." At that moment, Donald knew this situation could no longer be covered up. Since things had already spiraled out of control, the only option left was to completely side with Cynthia. His priority now was to prove to her that he was innocent. So when Christopher tried to explain that everything had been done with good intentions, it only made Donald look guilty by association. Under such circumstances, Donald showed no mercy. Crippling them would give Cynthia a sense of justice. If Cynthia's anger could be appeased, Donald believed his own trouble would be greatly reduced. Christopher never imagined that not only had Donald turned against him, but that he himself would also be brutally punished. Watching his son being beaten senseless, Christopher instinctively tried to flee. But as a frail old man, he stood no chance against trained bodyguards. Before he could get far, he was slammed to the ground. Moments later, the same brick crashed down on him twice. He was then tossed beside his son like a sack of garbage, their agonized screams echoing through the warehouse. Their cries were so piercing that they drowned out the distant roar of a helicopter approaching from outside. Bloodied and broken, father and son lay sprawled on the ground, their shoulders soaked in crimson, their condition utterly horrifying. After ensuring they were thoroughly dealt with, Donald walked over to Cynthia and bowed deeply. "Ms. Wade, these two beasts have been handled. I hope you won't hold this against me." Cynthia finally let out a breath of relief, but she immediately snapped impatiently, "Untie me." "Oh, of course." Donald responded hastily, rushing to loosen her restraints. The moment Cynthia was free, she leapt to her feet without caring about her filthy, disheveled state. She turned around instantly, grabbed Elaine by the hair, and slapped her viciously across the face. Chapter 1914. "You fucking bitch. I let you win. I actually let you win. You filthy country bumpkin, if it weren't for this situation, I wouldn't even dare to touch you." Elaine was still tied up and completely defenseless as Cynthia vented her fury, slapping her face and head repeatedly. Elaine screamed and begged through tears, "Sister. Please don't hit me. At least tell me what I did wrong." "What do you mean, tell you what you did wrong?" Cynthia roared, her rage exploding. "You've practically killed my lady. You think admitting fault is enough? My lady demands justice today. I'll fucking finish you." Terrified out of her mind, Elaine cried desperately, "Sister, please forgive me. You're Charlie's aunt, and I'm Charlie's mother-in-law, we're family. How can things end like this? If my son-in-law turns against you because of this, you won't get away with it." "Family?" Cynthia sneered. "Don't make me laugh. How could my lady be related to a filthy nobody like you? If Charlie dares to bring trash like your family back to the Wade household, I'll make sure he pays dearly." Donald, who had been standing nearby, immediately seized the opportunity and said eagerly, "Ms. Wade, just give the order, and I'll have this worthless woman taken care of completely." Elaine's face turned deathly pale. She looked at Cynthia and begged, "Sister, please think of our family ties. At worst, just cripple me like you did to Christopher and Harold, that's enough." Cynthia wished she could tear Elaine apart on the spot. But suddenly, her father's warning echoed in her mind, causing her to hesitate. She knew that if Donald really killed Elaine, Charlie would never forgive her. And if Charlie turned against the Wade family because of this, her father would undoubtedly hold her responsible. After struggling internally, she suppressed her killing intent. She glared at Elaine and said through clenched teeth, "You can thank Charlie for saving your life today. But don't get it twisted, you committed a serious offense. Death may be spared, but punishment is unavoidable. She then turned sharply to Donald and ordered, "Break her hands and feet." Donald immediately replied, "Ms. Wade, leave it to me." He shouted, "Get over here. Break her hands and legs." The moment he finished speaking, several subordinates rushed forward. Elaine collapsed into hysterical sobs, but they ignored her cries. One of them picked up a brick and smashed it hard onto her right knee. The pain was so intense that Elaine instantly passed out. Her right knee had already been broken once by Lady Wilson. After months of recovery, she had only recently removed the plaster. Now, suffering the same injury again, despair completely swallowed her. Elaine woke up screaming, "Please forgive me. My leg has already been broken once, if it happens again, I'll die." Donald snapped impatiently, "Shut the fuck up. Ms. Wade ordered your hands and legs broken, this isn't up for discussion." Elaine screamed hoarsely, "Then just kill me. I'd rather die than suffer this." Donald spat disdainfully, "What a fucking shrew. You idiots, finish her off." Just as one of the men raised the slab to smash Elaine's other leg, the warehouse door was suddenly kicked open. More than a dozen men in black rushed in, guns raised and aimed at everyone inside. The leader held his weapon steady and barked coldly, "No one move. If anyone dares move an inch, I'll shoot without hesitation." Chapter 1915. Everyone froze in shock as a group of men dressed in black, fully armed with live ammunition, stormed into the warehouse. Donald's heart skipped a beat. Panic surged through him as he shouted, "Who the hell are you?" One of the men in black, wearing a mask, replied coldly, his voice dripping with authority, "Interpol. We are conducting an investigation into a major transnational fraud case." This man was none other than Don Albert, Charlie's most trusted subordinate. At that moment, Charlie remained aboard the helicopter hovering nearby, deliberately choosing not to intervene personally. He knew that if he appeared, it would be extremely difficult to explain everything to Elaine. Donald's face turned pale. Interpol? Transnational fraud? What the fuck did that have to do with him? All he had done was kidnap 2 women. Elaine felt as if she had been struck by lightning. Memories of her previous imprisonment for stealing Charlie's bank card came rushing back all at once. But after a brief moment of panic, she regained her senses and screamed hoarsely, "Comrade Interpol, save me. I've been kidnapped. These people want to kill me." The leader of the men in black walked over, glanced at her injuries, and immediately issued an order, "Secure the injured first." "Yes," the others replied in unison, moving swiftly to protect Elaine, whose leg was clearly broken. Surrounded by armed men, Elaine finally felt safe. The pent-up fear exploded out of her, and she burst into tears. Meanwhile, Donald's anxiety skyrocketed. He had already offended Cynthia. If she was now under Interpol's protection, how the hell was he supposed to appease her? Unable to stay silent, he shouted angrily, "Hey! You've got the wrong people. There is no transnational fraud suspect here. Release that woman immediately." Don Albert stepped forward without warning and kicked Donald hard in the abdomen, sending him crashing to the ground. He then jammed the muzzle of his gun against Donald's forehead. "What?" Don Albert snarled. "Are you teaching me how to do my job?" Feeling the cold steel pressed against his skull, Donald nearly pissed himself. He frantically waved his hands. "And no, I didn't mean that. I was just trying to explain." "Save it," Don Albert cut him off coldly. "You're coming with us to the Vienna headquarters for questioning." At that moment, Cynthia stepped forward awkwardly and spoke up, "You're Interpol? I know the director of your Vienna office. I don't care what kind of operation you're running here. I need to go to the hospital immediately, and I expect you to protect me until my family arrives." Before she could finish her sentence, Don Albert raised his hand and slapped her viciously across the face. The sharp sound echoed through the warehouse. Cynthia was stunned. Before she could even react, Don Albert barked angrily, "Caroline Wells. We've been tracking you for a long time. You're the one who manufactured counterfeit Citibank black gold cards and scammed victims nationwide. You're under arrest for bank fraud using forged financial instruments. He sneered and continued, we know all about your alias, Cynthia Wade, and every filthy scam you've pulled across the globe. You still dare to put on an act in front of me? Cynthia stood frozen, completely dumbfounded. Chapter 1916. Cynthia screamed in disbelief, who the hell is Caroline Wells? How could I possibly have such a disgusting name? I am a Wade. I am Cynthia Wade. Don Albert interrupted her mercilessly, still lying. Over the years, you've ruined countless companies and driven people to bankruptcy. You've destroyed lives without blinking. Don't you have even a shred of self-awareness left? Elaine stood there, utterly stunned. Her mind was in complete chaos. What the hell is going on? Is this woman really Charlie's aunt, or is she a professional scammer? If she's Charlie's aunt, why would Interpol be arresting her? And they sound confident, this doesn't feel fake. But if she's a fraud, why would she insist on being part of the Wade family and try so hard to force my daughter to divorce Charlie? And why would someone like Donald believe her so completely? The more I think about it, the more messed up it becomes. Take away any single detail, and the whole thing collapses. Just then, Don Albert continued coldly, Caroline Wells, we know exactly why you approached Elaine. You wanted revenge on those 3 women who were sentenced to life in prison, didn't you? You planned to destroy Elaine's family piece by piece, right? Elaine's heart jolted. She suddenly remembered the 3 women who had tried to kill her in prison. One of them was a middle-aged woman with a scar across her face, who had once claimed that her imprisonment was caused by Elaine. At that instant, Elaine's perspective completely flipped. She was now almost certain that Cynthia was a fraud. Cynthia screamed hysterically, you're talking bullshit. I am not Caroline Wells. I am Cynthia Wade. Don Albert laughed mockingly. Still pretending? Scammers like you lie so much that you eventually forget who you really are. You even manage to brainwash yourselves. He sneered and continued, let me spell it out for you. You promised Elaine money to lure her into persuading her daughter to divorce Charlie, didn't you? Cynthia shouted angrily, nonsense. The check I gave her was real. It wasn't fake. Behind the black mask, a faint smile appeared on Don Albert's face, one Cynthia couldn't see. Charlie had already anticipated that his aunt would try to use money to manipulate Elaine, so he had deliberately arranged for Don Albert to sow doubt. Elaine, having once been jailed, was extremely sensitive to anything involving fake checks or forged bank cards. Charlie understood her far too well. The moment Elaine heard this, she screamed instinctively, Comrade Interpol. She gave me a fake check for $100 million. Don Albert nodded solemnly. Her plan was to trick you into sabotaging your daughter's marriage first, then have you take that fake check to the bank. Once reported, you'd be arrested for fraud and thrown back into prison. He added coldly, you were lucky to get out last time. But if you went back in again, you wouldn't be so fortunate. You'd likely end up just like those 3 women, rotting away with a life sentence. A chill ran down Elaine's spine. She thought fearfully, thank God I had some sense left. When that woman handed me that check, I already suspected she was a scammer, and I was right. She almost dragged me back to prison. That bitch nearly ruined my life. Chapter 1917. The key points articulated by Don Albert swiftly convinced Elaine of the truth of his assertions. As she recalled the 3 deceitful women she had encountered in prison, an unsettling fear lingered in her heart, as though she were seeing a distorted reflection of her own potential darkness. At that moment, Don Albert fixed his gaze on her and said solemnly, Miss Elaine, this time you didn't fall for the tricks of that con artist and managed to avoid being deceived. That's real progress. Otherwise, if you had been sentenced to life imprisonment, you would have ended up as nothing more than a pawn for Caroline Wells and her 3 accomplices. Elaine was completely stunned by his words. Goodness! This is terrifying. Thank God my instincts were sharp enough. If I had really been trapped in that prison, wouldn't I have been bullied and manipulated by those 3 vicious women for decades? Don Albert turned away and coldly addressed Cynthia. Caroline Wells, Interpol agencies from more than 20 countries are currently demanding your extradition to China for investigation. You can be considered the most notorious fraudster in history. We'll be staying overnight before escorting you to Interpol headquarters in Vienna for trial. Which country you'll ultimately be extradited to will depend on where you committed your most serious crimes. At that moment, Cynthia's will and spirit nearly collapsed. It felt as if she had fallen into a twisted world where no one believed a single word she said. In this bizarre reality, the name Caroline Wells felt utterly foreign to her. Worse still, she had been labeled a transnational con artist, the biggest fraudster in human history. It was completely absurd. Sensing a massive conspiracy behind everything, Cynthia shouted hysterically. I question your identity. How do I know you're really Interpol? Show me your credentials. Don Albert let out a mocking laugh. What? Now that you realize there's no way out, you want to bite back. Listen carefully, Caroline Wells, this time, there's absolutely no escape for you. With that, he barked an order. Handcuff her and escort her to the helicopter. Understood. Several men dressed in black rushed forward, twisted Cynthia's arms behind her back, snapped handcuffs onto her wrists, and dragged her outside. Don Albert added coldly. Caroline Wells is a high-risk criminal. Put a black hood over her head. Right away. One of the men immediately covered Cynthia's head with a black cloth. Meanwhile, Elaine, immobilized on the ground with a broken leg, shouted angrily. Comrade Interpol. You must sentence her to death. Don't let this evil woman hurt anyone ever again. Don Albert reassured her calmly. Don't worry. Justice will be served. He then turned to his men and ordered. Take this man named Webb away as well. We strongly suspect him of involvement in cross-border money laundering. We've wanted to arrest him for a long time, we just didn't expect to find him here today. Donald panicked and shouted. When did I become a suspect in cross-border money laundering? I've always run my business cleanly. I've never done anything illegal. Don Albert slapped him hard across the face. Are you serious? Do you have any idea what kind of filthy things your brother-in-law has been doing all these years? Donald shouted back. Whatever my brother-in-law did has nothing to do with me. Chapter 1918. Don Albert slapped him again and cursed angrily. If you hadn't secretly backed him all these years, how could he have done so many evil things? Do you really think you can wash your hands clean just because you weren't on the front lines? Remember this, those invaders' commanders are all Class A war criminals. Donald argued stubbornly. But I didn't launder money across borders. Don Albert sneered. Whether you did or didn't, you know the truth, and so do we. When all the evidence is laid out, let's see how long you can keep running your mouth. He waved his hand impatiently. Get this bastard out of my sight. Donald Webb was the person Don Albert hated the most. As he stared at Donald being dragged away, he cursed inwardly. That old dog Donald sent Mr. Jones and the others to Heaven Springs and nearly got me killed. If Master Wade hadn't arrived in time and given me a rejuvenation pill, I'd already be a corpse. Now that you've fallen into my hands, let's see how I don't make you pay for it. As Donald was hauled away, Elaine quickly pointed at Christopher and Harold, who were still lying on the ground like dead dogs, and asked. Comrade Interpol, these two tried to kidnap me. What will happen to them? Don Albert replied indifferently. We're Interpol. Our jurisdiction is transnational crime. Local trash like them should be handed over to the local authorities. Elaine nodded vigorously. That's fine. They deserve life imprisonment. Don Albert nodded. Don't worry. I'll have someone take you to the hospital. You can notify your family yourself. We'll inform the local authorities, so you won't need to worry about anything. Elaine burst into tears. Comrade Interpol, please take me to the hospital. I've broken my leg again in just a few days. Oh God, why is my fate so miserable? Don Albert turned to his men. You, drive Ms. Elaine to the hospital. Yes, Captain. Soon after, two people helped Elaine out of the warehouse. The moment she stepped outside, she was shocked by what she saw. 3 helicopters and several black luxury cars were parked in the open area outside the warehouse. She couldn't help but marvel inwardly. Interpol is incredible. They even have helicopters. Thank God Interpol showed up today, otherwise I would have been killed by Caroline Wells and Donald Webb. Thinking of this, she cursed silently. That Donald is such a fool. A billionaire boss who couldn't even see through a fraud like Caroline, calling her Ms. Wade like they were close friends. What a stupid idiot. Elaine was then escorted into a Rolls-Royce, which quickly drove off toward Oris Hill People's Hospital. Meanwhile, Cynthia sat stiffly inside a helicopter. With the black cloth hood over her head, she couldn't see anything, and her fear grew heavier by the second. Suddenly, the hood was removed. Her heart jumped into her throat. But when she looked closely, she froze. The man standing in front of her was her nephew, Charlie. In an instant, Cynthia understood everything. These Interpol agents were fake. It was all Charlie's scheme. Caroline Wells, the international scammers, everything had been carefully arranged by him. Realizing she had been completely played, Cynthia exploded with rage and cursed. Charlie! Are you fucking insane? I'm your aunt. How dare you toy with me like this? Chapter 1919. Facing the furious Cynthia, Charlie wore a calm, faint smile and said, "It's the new year, yet instead of staying in Eastcliff to prepare, you came all the way to Oris Hill to stir up trouble for me, interfere with my mother-in-law, and push for my divorce. If you can create chaos, why can't I play with you a little?" A flash of embarrassment crossed Cynthia's face before she clenched her teeth and snapped back. "I'm doing this for your own good. Just look at your wife, how could she possibly be worthy of you?" Charlie replied coldly. "Whether my wife deserves me or not is none of your business. I don't need your judgment. Today is merely a small warning. If you know what's good for you, go back to Eastcliff immediately. Otherwise, I'll have you spend the new year right here in Oris Hill." Cynthia was instantly furious. She tried to stand up but was forcefully shoved back down by the man in black beside her. Gritting her teeth, she yelled, "Charlie! Are you threatening me?" Charlie nodded expressionlessly. "Yes. Right now, I am threatening you. If you keep pushing me, I won't mind using force." "You wouldn't dare!" Cynthia screamed. "If you touch me, I'll fight you to the end." Charlie sneered. "Even my men could easily deal with you. Why would I hesitate? The only reason I haven't hit you is because I don't want to dirty my hands." Cynthia shrieked hysterically. "Whoever touches me will regret it. And your mother-in-law, that bitch even dared to hit me. I swear I'll make her pay." Charlie raised an eyebrow and frowned slightly. "Still so arrogant? Fine. Since you refuse to leave, then you'll celebrate the new year right here in Oris Hill." Cynthia shouted. "You're detaining me?" "Yes," Charlie replied calmly, nodding. "That's the right word, detain." Cynthia trembled with rage. "You're unbelievably bold." Charlie said indifferently. "I don't need your approval. I've already decided. If you're unhappy, then accept it first, only then will you have the right to leave." Cynthia screamed. "Charlie! I'm still your elder. I'm your aunt. You can't treat me like this." "Elder?" Charlie's voice turned ice cold. "You keep saying you're my aunt. Then tell me, where were you when I was in the orphanage?" Cynthia froze. "When I was grown and working on construction sites, where were you?" Charlie pressed. She remained silent. "And when I got married, where was my so-called aunt then?" Cynthia's face darkened. She wanted to argue but couldn't find the words. Charlie continued coldly. "You never cared about me, never helped me, never even asked how I was doing. Life taught me to rely on myself, yet now you suddenly appear to meddle in my marriage. What exactly are you after?" Cynthia stammered. I just thought you'd be better off without Claire. She doesn't deserve you. Charlie replied flatly. Then you'll stay in Oris Hill and learn how to restrain your temper. Otherwise, one day, your arrogance will ruin you. Cynthia clenched her teeth. Try it. Give me a phone, I'm calling your grandfather. Charlie casually handed her his phone. Go ahead. Call him. He then instructed the man beside her. Unlock her handcuffs. Yes. As soon as her hands were freed, Cynthia snatched the phone, quickly dialed a number, and pressed call. After a few rings, an aged but steady voice answered. Hello, who's calling? Her voice cracked instantly. Dad, it's me. Chapter 1920. Cynthia. Lord Wade exclaimed. How are you? Are you in danger? Her voice trembled as she said. I've been detained by Charlie. He won't let me return to Eastcliff for the new year. Dad, he's arrogant, disrespectful, and completely unreasonable. You have to help me. Lord Wade was stunned. What happened? Why did you clash with Charlie? At that moment, Charlie took the phone, his voice icy. She tricked me into going to my mother-in-law and tried to force my wife into divorcing me. Is this the Wade family's way of doing things? Lord Wade fell silent for a moment before sighing. Charlie, she is still your aunt. Charlie snapped back immediately. So what? What right does she have to interfere in my marriage? Don't tell me she has that right, even you don't. Lord Wade felt a mix of regret and helplessness. You're right. She crossed the line. I apologize on her behalf. Let her come back first. Charlie replied coldly. I already made myself clear. She's staying in Oris Hill for the new year. After that, I may consider letting her leave, but not before. Lord Wade hesitated, then sighed deeply. Fine. It's your decision. Hearing this, Cynthia completely lost hope. Dad! I want to come back to Eastcliff and spend the new year with you. Lord Wade said sternly. Cynthia, your temper is far too extreme. Learn from this lesson. Don't be 50 years old and still causing trouble like a reckless child. Cynthia was speechless, her heart full of bitterness. Lord Wade added. Charlie, if you ever have time, come back home. Grandpa really? Before he could finish, Charlie ended the call. There was no warmth left between him and the Wade family, especially given their indirect responsibility for his parents' deaths. As soon as the call ended, Cynthia choked back her tears and demanded. Charlie! If I must stay, then I want to spend the new year in Oris Hill. I want the presidential suite at Shangri-La. Charlie laughed softly. The presidential suite? You're really good at pretending you're still important. I'll rent you a room in a village instead. You'll stay there for a week. What? Cynthia screamed. You want me to live in a village? You're fucking heartless. Charlie smirked, suddenly remembering that the new year was approaching. His thoughts drifted to Sam, who had come to Oris Hill riding a bicycle. He immediately called Lorene. When she answered, her voice was cheerful. Charlie! What a surprise! Why are you calling me? Charlie asked directly. Lorene, do you know where Sam is now? She replied. He told me this morning that he was crossing the Yangtze River and should reach Oris Hill tonight. Charlie frowned. Why is he so slow? He had a small accident on the road and injured his arm, Lorene explained. That delayed him. Charlie asked. Did you arrange a place for him in the village? Yes, Lorene replied. 500 a month, just like you asked. All right, Charlie said. I'll take a look tomorrow. After hanging up, Don Albert approached, bringing Donald along, his head still covered with a black cloth. Charlie said coldly. Arrange for someone to rent the worst single room in the village for Ms. Wade. She'll stay there for 7 days. She's not allowed to leave. she can only buy the most basic necessities. Understood? Don Albert nodded without hesitation. Understood, Master Wade. I'll handle everything. Chapter 1921. Cynthia was seething with anger. Clenching her teeth, she shouted. Charlie! Don't think for a second that I, Cynthia, am confused. Within the Wade family, I hold a far superior status to yours. You had better show me some respect. Charlie ignored her outburst and instead gestured toward Don Albert, pointing at the vacant seat beside Cynthia. Don Albert quickly understood and guided Donald to sit next to her. Once Donald was settled, Charlie reached out and removed his headgear, flashing a slight smile as he said, Hello, Mr. Webb, it's good to see you again. Wade. Charlie. Donald felt as if he had been struck by lightning, both inside and out. He could hardly believe Charlie was standing before him. Could it be that he was the mastermind behind everything happening today? How could one man wield so much influence? Noticing Donald's shock, Charlie grinned and said, Mr. Webb, it's been a while. First, let me introduce you to the lovely lady beside you. Cynthia shot him a furious glare, grinding her teeth. Charlie! Don't push your luck. Ignoring her, Charlie continued to Donald. This woman isn't Caroline Wells. Her real name is Cynthia. She is the eldest daughter of the Wade family from Eastcliff and happens to be my father's sister, my aunt. What? Donald felt as if a nuclear bomb had detonated in his chest. His voice trembled as he stuttered. Wait, are you really part of the Wade family? Charlie replied casually. Yes, I am part of the Wade family, but it's really not that significant. Donald was drenched in cold sweat. Master Wade, why didn't you reveal your identity sooner? If I had known, I would have been terrified to even think of opposing you, not even with 10,000 times the courage. Charlie chuckled. Donald, there's no need to be so frightened. Look at yourself, you're as pale as a ghost. The Wade family isn't as intimidating as you think. He then gestured toward Cynthia. See? Here's Lord Wade's daughter, and you managed to tie her up. Donald, visibly shaken, waved his hands frantically. Master Wade, please don't say that. This was entirely Christopher and Harold's doing. They told me they were kidnapping Elaine and didn't say it was Miss Wade tied up. I only realized the truth when I arrived. Charlie pointed at Cynthia and asked. Did you hit her earlier? Donald appeared ready to collapse, choking out. I was wrong. I truly had no idea about Miss Wade's identity. Charlie smirked. Is it entertaining to be part of the Wade family? Donald shook his head violently, like a rattle. Cynthia's expression darkened. Donald, now panicking, stammered. Master Wade, I honestly didn't know your identity or Miss Wade's. If I had, I wouldn't have dared think poorly of either of you. Charlie turned to him. Mr. Webb, have you considered what will happen to the Webb family after today? Donald's entire body trembled uncontrollably. Chapter 1922. How could he still be unaware of the fate awaiting the Webb family? Cynthia was more than ready to confront him. The Wade family would undoubtedly back her. At its peak, the Webb family could not compare to the power of the Wades, and now, after Charlie had weakened them, they were scarcely more than insignificant insects in the Wade family's presence. Donald felt that the Wade family could utterly obliterate his fragile family. Choking back his fear, he pleaded. Master Wade, Ms. Wade, I had no idea and unintentionally offended you. Please forgive me. Cynthia, teeth clenched, directed her fury at Donald instead of Charlie. You, Webb, mark my words, today, Cynthia, will not let you off the hook. Just wait, I'll make sure you meet a fate so grim there won't be a place left to bury you. Donald felt as if he might collapse under the weight of her words. While a damaged family reputation and lost assets were tolerable, the thought of the Wade family hunting him relentlessly was terrifying. If the Webb family were truly destroyed, it would be the end for him. With desperation clouding his vision, he turned to Charlie, tears welling, and begged. Master Wade, I implore you. this is truly a misunderstanding. If the Wade family can forgive me, I'm willing to give up 20% of my shares. I only ask for your mercy." Cynthia, teeth clenched, spat. "Don't even mention your 20%. To me, it's worthless. 50% or 100% wouldn't make a difference." Charlie waved his hand dismissively. "Let's not kid ourselves. Even if you think it's worthless, it's still something in my eyes." He then addressed Donald directly. "Mr. Webb, you've taken not only my mother-in-law but also my aunt. I am a double victim. Let's adjust your offer from 20% to 40%. If you obey my orders, the Wade family will not pursue you further." Donald felt a mix of relief and despair. Charlie had provided a lifeline, but giving up 40% of the Webb family's shares was a devastating blow. Cynthia refused to relent. She had endured far too much today. Without being able to vent on Charlie, Donald became her sole target. If Charlie blocked her from punishing Donald, would she have to unleash her wrath on the two who had kidnapped her? They were mere children. What could she accomplish by destroying their entire family? In a fit of fury, she shouted, "Charlie! Whether or not to pursue him is my decision. It's ultimately your grandfather who calls the shots." Charlie replied calmly, "I've already given Donald a resolution. If he agrees, your opinions won't matter." He then turned to Cynthia, voice icy. "Don't assume that because I haven't been active in the Wade family, you can dictate how things go. When my marriage was arranged, it was clear I would not be used to further the Wade family's interests. I won't allow it. So, if you dare to scheme again, don't expect me to hold back. Whether it's you or anyone in the Wade family, I won't tolerate it." Cynthia, momentarily stunned by Charlie's ferocious gaze and tone, shouted, "Charlie! Do you honestly think you can challenge the Wade family? Your Grand Group and the 10 billion in cash, it's all thanks to the Wade family. They can elevate or crush you. Without them, you'd be nothing, lacking any foundation. The Wade family can easily annihilate Donald, and it would be 100 times easier." Charlie raised an eyebrow, intrigued by her hysteria, and asked playfully, "Oh? Is that so?" Chapter 1923. Cynthia's self-esteem took a serious blow under Charlie's playful gaze. Grinding her teeth, she yelled, "Of course! Do you really think I was joking with you? If you keep ignoring the praise and toasting without properly enjoying fine wine, I promise you, you will regret it sooner or later. Not just you, but your wife, your mother-in-law, and everyone around you will face dire consequences." With that, Cynthia completely lost her temper. Her voice rose, shrill and sharp. "Let me tell you, your parents were fortunate back in the day, and they can return to Eastcliff's grave if you perish. When your time comes, you won't even have the right to enter the Wade family ancestor's grave." Charlie's expression darkened instantly. He looked at her calmly and said, "You are my father's biological sister, which is why I cannot strike you." Cynthia scoffed. "Oh, so you do acknowledge that I'm your father's sister? Then you should treat me with the respect I deserve." Before she could finish, Charlie turned to Don Albert. "Don Albert. You have no familial ties to her, so shut her up." Don Albert responded immediately, "Yes, Master Wade." Without hesitation, he lunged forward and seized Cynthia by the collar. Cynthia was taken aback and threatened. "If you dare hit me, I will make sure you pay for it." Don Albert delivered a sharp slap to her face, saying coldly, "Master Wade gave me my life. If he ordered me to eliminate a king, I wouldn't hesitate, let alone deal with you, an uneducated vixen." He slapped her again, without mercy. Cynthia reeled from the 2 strikes. Enraged, she screamed, "You will all meet your demise. You will all die." Charlie looked at her coldly. "If you had done your homework on me, you would understand why I am revered as Master Wade in Oris Hill. If you had truly investigated, you would also know how the 8 heavenly kings, sent by Donald, were completely annihilated by me at Gollum Mountain." With a smile, he continued, If you had looked into me thoroughly, you would know that I just returned from Japan a few days ago. Regarding the events that transpired there, I'm sure you're aware of them." Cynthia's face paled with fear at each revelation. Charlie fixed his gaze on her and asked, "Didn't you want me to return and marry Stephanie's son?" "Well, have you considered that my father's best friend, Oren, was on the brink of death? How did he suddenly recover? Is it truly a medical miracle?" He then pointed at Don Albert. "Remember when Don Albert was nearly killed by Donald's men at Heaven Springs? What brought him back to life at the last moment? Do you know?" Cynthia's face was as white as a sheet. At that moment, Charlie unleashed his aura, filling the space with energy, and shouted, "If you haven't pondered these questions before, now is the time to do so. Think carefully. Once you've figured it out, come back and tell me, it's not you who can end my life, but I who can end yours." Cynthia was momentarily stunned by his presence and words. The Wade family had indeed investigated various aspects of Charlie in Oris Hill. However, many of the leads they had gathered were insufficient. They knew Charlie seemed exceptionally strong but lacked a clear understanding of just how powerful he truly was. They were aware of the demise of Donald's guards at Gollum Mountain but were oblivious to the identity of the perpetrator. And then there was Oren. Chapter 1924. Oren, who had been battling late-stage pancreatic cancer, experienced an unexpected turnaround in his health, almost as if transported back a decade. The elite of Eastcliff buzzed with curiosity, eager to uncover the secret behind Oren's miraculous recovery and the extraordinary circumstances he had encountered. Despite extensive inquiries, no one managed to uncover any substantial information. In the midst of this, when Charlie made a sudden revelation, Cynthia gasped. "Do you mean these events are connected to you?" Charlie replied coolly. "What do you mean, connected to me? I am the one responsible for all of this, Charlie Wade." Even Donald stood in stunned silence, unable to respond. The demise of the 8 great heavenly kings had dealt a significant blow to the Webb family, yet they remained oblivious to the details surrounding their deaths. Now, Donald finally grasped the truth. It dawned on him that Charlie had eliminated all 8 of the heavenly kings. He was tormented by the thought. Just how powerful is this Charlie? Cynthia was equally shocked. While Donald was unaware of what Charlie had claimed regarding recent events in Japan, Cynthia was fully informed. In a matter of days, the 3 major families in Japan had been completely upended. One family was wiped out entirely, another suffered devastating losses, leaving only the Ito family intact. Patriarch Yuhiko Ito had even lost his legs. Behind these events lay an incredibly formidable figure who had taken down countless ninjas and rescued Zara and the Fitz siblings. Could it be Charlie? Charlie turned to Donald and asked Cynthia, "Are you aware that Donald has a son named Kian, who was in Oris Hill recently? He must have been subjected to humiliating treatment every hour like a devil." Immediately, Donald's face drained of color. Cynthia was equally shocked. Although the Webb family wasn't prominent in Eastcliff, Kian, Donald's second son, was well known due to viral TikTok videos that had captivated the nation. Top experts from prominent families analyzed them and concluded Kian was a master of endurance, leading to strong psychological influence over him. Cynthia pondered. Could it be that Charlie was behind this too? Donald, utterly defeated, struggled to contain his anger and choked out. "Master Wade. My youngest son has always been a good kid. He was only studying in Oris Hill and never did anything wrong. Why have you gone to such lengths to harm him?" Charlie shot Donald a fierce look and slapped him sharply across the face, reprimanding him. "Your worthless son takes pleasure in exploiting and ruining young girls. He indulges himself, and when the girls refuse to comply, he uses psychological manipulation to drive them into despair. This kind of despicable behavior deserves punishment. And now you come here, claiming your son, who is less than human, has always been a good boy. What gives you the audacity to say that?" Chapter 1925. Donald stood under Charlie's merciless gaze, not daring to lift his head. He knew very well what Kian had done, but in his mind, those were merely youthful indulgences, his son fooling around with women. Even if Kian had crossed some lines, Donald believed it had nothing to do with Charlie or anyone close to him. So why was Charlie punishing him so viciously? But as he looked at Charlie's icy expression and overwhelming fury, Donald finally realized something terrifying. Charlie's sense of justice ran far deeper and colder than he had ever imagined. Charlie locked his eyes onto Donald and said coldly, "Donald, my aunt wanted you dead, but even so, I didn't expect you to be this stubborn. In this matter, I bear 40% of the responsibility alongside you. From now on, however, the Wade family will decide your fate." Overwhelmed, Donald suddenly broke down. Despite his hands being tied behind his back, he lunged forward and slammed his head onto the ground, kneeling as he sobbed hysterically. "Master Wade. I was wrong. I fully admit my sins. My son deserves severe punishment, and the fact that you spared his miserable life is already an act of immense mercy. I failed as a father. Please, show me mercy, please forgive me." Charlie replied without the slightest warmth. "Your failure doesn't stop with your son." He continued sharply. "Your brother-in-law, Marconi, committed countless unforgivable crimes. As the head of South Haven's most powerful family, you allowed him to run rampant under your nose. You knew exactly what he was doing, why didn't you stop him? If you had intervened earlier, he wouldn't have destroyed so many families, and I wouldn't have had to wipe him out." Donald froze in shock. At that moment, it finally hit him. Charlie was the one who had destroyed Marconi and completely dismantled the beggar gang's leadership. Terrified, Donald cried out, "I'm sorry, Master Wade. I bear heavy responsibility. I knew he was rotten to the core, but my wife cried, threatened to divorce me, and forced my hand again and again. My heart softened, and I thought that as long as I didn't get involved, he could do whatever he wanted. I never imagined things would end like this." Charlie clenched his teeth, his voice filled with killing intent. "You made a colossal mistake. How many innocent lives did Marconi ruin? How many families did he destroy? You carry that blood on your hands too, Donald. Even if I killed you right now, the heavens would still make you suffer through endless reincarnations to repay your sins." Donald trembled violently, tears streaming down his face. "Master Wade. I truly know I was wrong. Please give me a chance to redeem myself. I'm willing to hand over 60% of the Webb family's assets. From now on, the Webb family will serve you without the slightest disobedience." Charlie waved his hand dismissively. "This is no longer about money." He continued coldly. "If you truly want redemption, I'll give you one chance, but only if you have the courage to accept it." Donald immediately lowered his head. "Master Wade, please tell me. I'll do whatever it takes." Charlie said flatly. "Transfer 40% of the Webb family's assets to Don Albert. He will manage them from now on. The remaining 20% will be donated to charity to compensate for the countless victims your brother-in-law destroyed." Don Albert immediately objected. "Master Wade, how can this be right? You gave me my life. Any assets should belong to you, how could you give them to me?" Charlie replied indifferently. "If Mr. Webb agrees, you'll take the 40% first." Donald didn't dare hesitate. He nodded repeatedly. "Don't worry, Master Wade. I'll complete everything today." Charlie continued. "From this moment on, Donald, you answer to Don Albert. If he tells you to go east, you go east. If he tells you to kneel, you kneel. I want the Webb family completely erased from south of the Yangtze River." Donald dared not argue. "Yes, Master Wade, your will is my command." Charlie then turned to Don Albert. "Watch him closely. If he even thinks about betraying me, report it immediately." Don Albert replied firmly. "Don't worry, Master Wade. I'll handle him. As for Donald's shares, I'll hold on to them for you." Charlie nodded. Then he looked at Cynthia, whose cheek was still swollen from the earlier slaps, and said calmly, "Auntie, since you're already here, you'll stay in Oris Hill for a week. Wait until the new year before returning. I've been busy and won't be visiting, so I'll wish you a happy new year in advance." Chapter 1926. Charlie's expression turned solemn as he concluded. This ends today's matter. If I discover that any of you dare to act behind my back, don't expect mercy. Cynthia stared at him, wanting to speak, but the words died in her throat. She suddenly realized just how much Charlie resembled his father, her second brother, Bruce. Bruce had once appeared weak and scholarly, yet he dared to stand alone before an army. Once he made a decision, nothing could sway him. Even when the odds were impossible, he carved out his own path. That was why Eastcliffe's elite once said, "With a son of the Wade family, even a tiger can't be restrained." Even Bruce's enemies respected him, secretly admiring his unbreakable will. He had been the brightest star the Wade family had ever produced. Now, Cynthia felt that same terrifying aura radiating from Charlie. Fear crept into her heart. She finally understood, this nephew was someone she absolutely could not afford to offend. The thought of him cutting her off completely made her scalp go numb. Swallowing her pride, she said reluctantly, "Charlie, I'll follow your arrangements today. I won't pursue your mother-in-law or Donald." Her voice softened into something almost pitiful. "But you can't keep protecting the father and son who humiliated me, can you? Auntie has suffered enough today, you should understand." As she spoke, the humiliation of the day overwhelmed her, tears welling up. Today had been absolute hell. She had gone to Elaine, hoping to use her influence and control her, only to end up being completely trampled instead. Then Harold, Christopher, and that bastard son of his dragged her here like trash. Worst of all, Donald had slapped her and nearly scared her into losing control and wetting herself. Cynthia had never suffered such humiliation in her entire life. What enraged her even more was that she had never offended Elaine before, yet she was publicly humiliated by her. The urge for revenge burned violently inside her, but Elaine was Charlie's mother-in-law, and she didn't dare touch her. Now that Donald had surrendered most of his fortune just to become Charlie's obedient dog, even retaliating against the Wilson family seemed impossible. Charlie frowned and turned to Don Albert. "What's the situation with Christopher and Harold?" Don Albert replied. "Donald's men broke all 4 limbs of both of them. They're completely crippled now and pose no threat. What to do with them next is up to you, Master Wade." Chapter 1927. Charlie had a complicated relationship with Christopher, Harold, and that entire branch of the Wilson family, and his feelings toward them were undeniably deep and tangled. However, upon learning that both Christopher and Harold had already suffered severe injuries, most of the anger in his heart gradually subsided. No one understood the Wilson family better than Charlie. They were despicable, shameless, and disgusting, but they weren't truly irredeemable villains at their core. Back then, Hannah had targeted Elaine largely because of a prior incident. Elaine had once been playing cards at a friend's house when she encountered Hannah and Christopher, who were there to inspect the property. They mocked and humiliated Elaine, and Hannah felt deeply disgraced. That humiliation later drove her to seek revenge by attempting to cheat Elaine out of her money. Now, Christopher and Harold had kidnapped Elaine with the intention of sending her to the infamous black brick kiln. Their motive was simple: to retaliate for Hannah being sent to the coal kiln earlier. Yet even under such circumstances, Elaine remained stubbornly defiant and refused to bow her head. In the final analysis, the Wilson family was undeniably troublesome, but they had not crossed the line into deserving death. Moreover, Charlie had no affection whatsoever for his troublesome aunt. If he allowed her to vent her hatred by killing Christopher and Harold, it would only satisfy her vicious temper. Letting her stew in anger, on the other hand, would do far more to grind down her arrogance. So Charlie said calmly, "Christopher and Harold are my wife's uncle and cousin, my own family. If you kill them, what kind of grand funeral do you expect our family to hold?" Cynthia immediately interjected. "Then are we waiting until after the new year to deal with them?" Charlie waved his hand dismissively. "My wife has a soft heart. If they die, she'll definitely be upset. Letting them live is the better option." Hearing this, Cynthia panicked and blurted out, "They did this to me. You have to let me deal with them." Charlie frowned coldly. "How exactly do you plan to deal with them?" Both of them have had all their limbs broken. They'll be bedridden for months, maybe longer. Isn't that enough? That's not enough. Cynthia screamed furiously. If I don't kill them, I won't be able to sleep in peace. Charlie snapped back sharply. If you can't sleep, then suffer through it and endure. His sudden outburst made Cynthia shiver violently. Charlie stared at her with icy contempt. You were the one who stirred up trouble first, and now you think you're entitled to threaten others? Who the hell gave you the nerve to act this way? Cynthia looked utterly defeated and said weakly. I'm your aunt. I've never suffered such humiliation in my entire life. Charlie replied coldly. Then take this as a lesson. This is only the beginning. If you don't rein yourself in, you'll face far worse sooner or later. Growing impatient, Charlie waved his hand. I don't want to waste any more time on this. This matter ends here. You are not allowed to spread a single word about it. Otherwise, you'll be the one paying the price. Do you understand? Seeing that Charlie was dead serious, a wave of fear washed over Cynthia. She knew there was no way to resolve things on her own terms today. With Charlie's personality, he would never let her off lightly. Reluctantly, she nodded. All right. I understand. Charlie then turned to Don Albert. Don Albert, arrange a secure residence in the city for my aunt. She is to be monitored 24 hours a day. She will remain inside for 1 week. After 7 days, I'll personally send her to the airport. Don Albert immediately replied. Understood, Master Wade. I'll handle it right away. Chapter 1928. Charlie glanced at Donald once more and said coldly. From now on, you report everything to Don Albert. Don't make any moves, big or small, without his approval. Do you understand? Donald hurriedly lowered his head. Yes, Charlie, no, Master Wade. From today onward, I will follow your instructions and Don Albert's orders without exception. Charlie suddenly asked. By the way, did you buy Thompson First A06? Donald replied awkwardly. Yes. I bought it. Charlie stared at him coldly. You bought that villa for the Wilson family? Are you deliberately trying to piss me off? Donald panicked. Yes. Master Wade, I admit my mistake. Don't worry, I'll take it back immediately and kick the Wilson family out. No. Charlie waved his hand dismissively. Kicking them out is too boring. Do this instead, immediately shut down all cooperation with the Wilson Group. Withdraw every single investment you made. I want them returned to their original miserable state. Even if they're living in Thompson First, they should be nothing but empty shells. Donald didn't hesitate for a second. Understood, Master Wade. I'll take care of it today. Charlie nodded slightly. Good. Don Albert, coordinate matters with my aunt. Donald will handle the Wilson Group. As for Christopher and Harold, don't waste time with the authorities, go straight to the hospital. Move. Both men responded respectfully and left immediately. Cynthia's face twisted with resentment. Yet no matter how furious she was, she didn't dare show the slightest defiance. She could only grit her teeth and say angrily. Charlie, look at me. I'm injured and I've lost 2 teeth. Can't you at least send me to the hospital first? Charlie nodded calmly. I'll send you to the hospital. But don't get any stupid ideas. If you do, you won't be staying in Oris Hill for a week, you'll be staying for a year and a half. Cynthia shuddered violently. Charlie's arrangement was nothing short of house arrest. The conditions there would be hellish, enduring even 1 day would be torture, let alone a week. A year would be worse than death. She immediately backed down. Don't worry. Since I've agreed to follow your instructions, I won't do anything else. Charlie turned to Don Albert. Take her to the hospital, but don't fix her teeth here. She'll return to Eastcliff for that. Don Albert nodded. Understood, Master Wade. Afterward, Don Albert placed Cynthia and Donald into separate vehicles and then headed to the warehouse to retrieve Christopher and Harold. At that moment, the father and son lay sprawled on the cold concrete floor like two piles of trash, utterly broken. They had cried so long that not a single tear remained. Harold was drowning in despair, cursing inwardly. I originally wanted to suck up to Elaine to curry favor with Donald, but who the hell would have thought the woman captured with her was a fucking international scammer? And that bitch was so convincing, she even fabricated some bullshit rich identity for Charlie, tricking both me and my dad into believing it. Even Donald fell for her lies. Donald, you old bastard. Believe whatever garbage you want, but why the fuck did you have to cripple our entire family just to flatter him? My father and mother both work for you. How could you treat us like this? What the hell is wrong with you? Chapter 1929. At this moment, Harold regretted so deeply that his intestines had turned green. Being beaten to a pulp by Donald's men wasn't even the worst part. After all, physical injuries would heal within a few months. The real problem was the international criminal police who had just arrived and announced that they would hand him and his father over to the local authorities. If that happened, the kidnapping charges against them would be unavoidable. This was a serious felony. The minimum sentence alone was 10 years. The thought of possibly spending a decade behind bars plunged Harold into utter despair. As Don Albert's men dragged him away, Harold couldn't hold back his tears. He sobbed and pleaded, "Excuse me, comrades from Interpol. Is it true? Are we really going to jail? My father and I were forced into this. The real mastermind is Donald." Christopher, just as distraught, hurriedly added, "Even if we were wrong, we've already suffered so much. Please, can you show us mercy and give us a chance to live?" Harold turned toward his father, his eyes brimming with tears, and wailed, "Dad. I don't want to go to jail." Tears streamed down Christopher's face as he replied hoarsely, "When the time comes, I'll take all the responsibility. I'll say it was my idea and that you knew nothing. Maybe the judge will go easy on you." Hearing this, Harold completely broke down and cried uncontrollably. The father and son clung to each other, sobbing miserably, turning the scene into utter chaos. At that moment, Don Albert stepped forward, his voice icy and stern. "Stop crying. Cry one more time and I'll send you straight to prison." Harold froze and asked nervously, "Comrade Interpol, what do you mean? You're not sending us to jail?" Don Albert replied coldly, "You two are lucky. We need to keep Caroline's arrest confidential for now, so we can't notify other departments yet. Therefore, the kidnapping of Elaine and Caroline will not be reported to the local authorities today." "Really?" Harold shouted, his entire body trembling with excitement. But the sudden movement aggravated his injuries, and intense pain shot through his limbs, making him cry out again. Despite the pain, his heart was bursting with joy. He had escaped prison. Meanwhile, at Thompson First Villa, Lady Wilson reclined on the sofa in the living room of Villa A06. She glanced at the time and frowned slightly as she said to Wendy, who was sitting across from her, "Why haven't your father and brother made any progress yet? It's been too long without any news." Wendy replied, "Maybe they're just overwhelmed. There's a lot to handle." Not only did they have to hand Elaine over, but they also recorded a video to send to the Black Brick Factory. Lady Wilson nodded and sneered, "Elaine has been getting more and more arrogant lately, completely detached from reality. It's about time she learned what real suffering feels like." Wendy laughed coldly. "Exactly, Grandma. I've hated that bitch for a long time. This time she caused so much trouble, I really wish I could break her leg again." As she recalled the past, a twisted excitement flashed in her eyes. Those days in the cell were unforgettable. Gina, that tough woman, slapped Elaine so hard every time, like she was trying to beat the arrogance right out of her. Just imagining how miserable Elaine was back then makes me feel thrilled. Lady Wilson nodded enthusiastically, her face full of delight. That country bumpkin Gina is unbelievably strong. One person like her could beat Elaine to death without even breaking a sweat. Chapter 1930. Wendy let out a long sigh and said with some regret, "It's a pity that Elaine is about to be sent to the black brick kiln to make bricks, but Gina still hasn't been released yet. Once Gina gets out, she probably won't ever see Elaine again." "I know," Lady Wilson sighed as well. "But that's fine. Once Elaine reaches the black brick kiln, she'll experience suffering beyond imagination." Meanwhile, at the Oris Hill Women's Detention Center, Gina, who was lost in thought, suddenly sneezed. Several inmates rushed over immediately, concern written all over their faces. "Sister Gina, are you okay? Did you catch a cold?" Gina rubbed her nose and said, "I'm not sure. Maybe someone out there is thinking about me." "That must be it," another inmate chimed in. "Chinese New Year is coming soon, but none of my family has come to visit me. It really breaks my heart." She then turned to Gina and asked, "Sister Gina, how long until you're released?" Gina sighed softly. "About 5 or 6 more months." "That's so long. I still have 8 months left." "I have 4 months." "Well, at least you'll be home for the new year next year." Gina smiled bitterly and said, "My mother is gone, my husband ran away with another woman, and my brother's family treats me like trash. I feel completely alone in this world." As she spoke, her eyes turned red and her voice trembled. "With the new year coming, I really want to burn some paper money for the lady. I don't know how she's doing or whether she has enough money. It's so cold today. I hope she and my dad can at least celebrate the new year properly." "Sister Gina, don't think too much about it. Once you're out, you'll have plenty of chances to honor your parents." Gina nodded lightly but sighed again. "To be honest, I still worry about that lady. Seeing her being bullied reminds me of how my sister-in-law bullied my mother when she was still alive. It makes my heart hurt." After a pause, she asked the others, "What do you think old Lady Wilson is doing right now? When she was brought in, she didn't even have a place to sleep. Do you think she's still wandering the streets?" Just then, a prison guard walked over and called out, "Gina, Yadira, Samantha, pack your things. You're being released." The 3 women stared at each other in shock. Gina blurted out, "Released? But my sentence isn't over yet." The guard replied, "Someone has posted bail for you pending trial. You can leave today." "Really?" Gina asked in disbelief. "Who would bail me out? I don't know anyone who could do that." "Your old acquaintance, Lady Wilson," the guard said. "She paid a hefty deposit and bailed all 3 of you out." Gina was stunned into silence. After a long moment, she asked in shock, "Lady Wilson? Isn't she struggling? How could she afford to bail us out?" The guard laughed lightly. "Lady Wilson is doing quite well now. I heard her family business has revived, and they've moved into a luxury villa at Thompson First. She's wealthy enough to handle this easily. Congratulations, and good luck." Chapter 1931. Gina and the others were completely stunned when they heard the news. Following the shock, a surge of excitement and joy swept over them. Did Lady Wilson really buy her daughter-in-law a villa at Thompson First? Gina asked in disbelief. The prison guard replied casually, "She bought another one." "Are you kidding me?" Gina exclaimed, utterly astonished. "A villa worth over $100 million, and she just buys it like that?" The guard smiled and explained, "They even paid more than $1 million in bail for the 3 of you to secure your release pending trial. This was done out of gratitude for your past kindness toward her. Lady Wilson wanted to bail you out so you could live comfortably at Thompson First." Tears welled up in Gina's eyes. She wiped them away quickly, her voice choking with emotion. "Lady Wilson, she really stood up for me." The other 2 women were equally excited. One of them said thoughtfully, "Yes, Sister Gina helped her sincerely back then, and Lady Wilson is someone who remembers kindness. In the end, this is the reward for the good that Sister Gina has done." A fierce sense of justice surged in Gina's heart as she said firmly, that Elaine is utterly disrespectful to her mother-in-law. If she ever dares to mistreat Lady Wilson again, I'll definitely teach her a lesson. The prison guard immediately interrupted her. "Gina! This is a rare opportunity to be released on bail. Once you're out, you must reform properly. From now on, you are strictly forbidden from committing any illegal or criminal acts. If you're caught again, not only will you have to serve the rest of your sentence, but repeat offenders will face even harsher punishment. Gina gasped. Wait, are things really that serious? Absolutely, the guard replied sternly. You must become a law-abiding citizen. Even minor offenses like littering or spitting can result in administrative penalties. The guard added seriously, after your release, even with a criminal record, both the authorities and the community will keep a close eye on you. If you misbehave again, the law will show no mercy. Gina's heart pounded in fear. She waved her hands quickly and said, "Don't worry. I swear I'll change completely and become a new person once I'm out." "That's more like it," the guard said with a nod. He continued, "Living at Lady Wilson's place in Thompson First means you'll be staying in the best residential area in Oris Hill. Cherish this opportunity. Otherwise, you'll end up right back here, suffering again. Understood?" "Understood," Gina replied loudly, nodding vigorously. As she spoke, her mind was already filled with images of her future life at Thompson First. Born into poverty, Gina's family had always struggled. Just a few years earlier, she had finally saved enough money to patch up her old brick house, which was over 20 years old and barely livable. Her living conditions were hardly better than those inside the detention center. Her lifelong dream had been to move into the city and own a small 2-bedroom apartment. But with Oris Hill's sky-high housing prices, that dream had always felt impossibly distant. Now, the prospect of living in a luxury villa at Thompson First felt like soaring straight from the bottom to the top of the world. The excitement was overwhelming, and the three women were on the verge of tears. Just then, the guard reminded them, "Don't get carried away yet. There are still procedures to complete. Cooperate properly, and you'll be out soon." "Yes. We'll definitely cooperate," the three of them replied eagerly. While Gina and the others were busy completing their release procedures, Lady Wilson, who had been anxiously waiting at home, received a call from the hospital. On the other end of the line, a hurried doctor asked, "Hello, are you a family member of Christopher and Harold?" Lady Wilson replied quickly, "Yes, I am." "What happened?" Chapter 1932. The caller exclaimed urgently, "Christopher and Harold have both suffered serious injuries. They're currently being treated in the emergency department at Oris Hill People's Hospital. You need to come over immediately." "What?" Lady Wilson cried out in shock. "Both of them were injured? What happened?" "Their limbs are fractured," the other party replied. "Their lives aren't in danger, but the injuries are serious and require family members to provide care. Please come as soon as possible." Lady Wilson was instantly thrown into panic. Wendy, who was nearby, hurriedly asked, "Grandma, what's wrong?" With a tense expression, Lady Wilson said, "The hospital just called. Your father and brother have been injured and are being treated at the hospital. We need to go right now." "What?" Wendy jumped to her feet, her voice trembling. "Grandma, what happened? Weren't Dad and my brother dealing with Elaine?" "I don't know the details," Lady Wilson urged anxiously. "Stop asking questions. Get ready immediately, we're going to the hospital." At that moment, Hannah, who had been busy preparing ingredients in the kitchen, came out and asked, "Mom, what's going on?" Lady Wilson shot her a furious glare and shouted, "Hurry up and change your clothes. Christopher and Harold have been injured, and we're going to the hospital." "What?" Hannah froze in shock. "How did that happen? I could understand if Elaine ended up in the hospital, but why them?" Lady Wilson snapped angrily, "Enough. Stop talking nonsense and hurry up." Realizing the seriousness of the situation, Hannah quickly wiped her hands on her apron and said, "I'll change right away." The three generations of Wilson women rushed out and headed straight to Oris Hill People's Hospital. Meanwhile, outside the Oris Hill Women's Detention Center, Gina, Yadira, and Samantha stepped through the iron gate, each carrying their blankets and personal belongings. As soon as they were outside, Gina turned to them and said seriously, Yadira, Samantha, remember what they told us, once we're out, don't look back. Otherwise, we might end up going back in. Got it? The other two nodded vigorously. We understand, Sister Gina. Yadira then asked curiously, Sister Gina, since Lady Wilson bailed us out, why didn't she come to meet us personally? That's right, Samantha added. With her status, wouldn't it be easy to arrange a car for us? Gina immediately shook her head. Don't think like that. It's already a huge blessing that she helped bail us out and arranged for us to live at Thompson First. We shouldn't expect everything from others. We need to know how to be grateful and satisfied. The other two nodded in agreement. You're right, Sister Gina. Gina suggested excitedly, let's take a taxi to Thompson First. It's almost dinner time. Maybe Lady Wilson is even hosting a welcome dinner for us. Hearing this, the other two became excited as well. Let's go. Let's take a taxi. Just then, a Mercedes-Benz pulled up in front of them. The driver got out and asked politely, Excuse me, are you Gina, Yadira, and Samantha? Gina nodded eagerly. Yes, that's us. Who are you? The driver smiled and said, I'm the driver sent by Lady Wilson to pick you up and take you to Thompson First. Please get in the car. Chapter 1933. After hearing the driver's words, Gina stared at the luxurious Mercedes-Benz with excitement and exclaimed, Lady Wilson is really generous to us. I've never ridden in a Mercedes-Benz before. Yadira, sitting beside her, couldn't help but sigh and said, the best car I've ever been in was the police car driven by Comrade Police when I got arrested. Samantha nodded in agreement. Sister Yadira, I feel exactly the same. The driver overheard their conversation, smiled, and said, All right, ladies, get in. Okay. Gina replied eagerly. She quickly opened the rear door and climbed inside. The other two hurried to follow. However, the driver explained, there are only 2 seats in the back row, so one of you will need to sit in the front passenger seat. Yadira was already opening the other rear door. Samantha, who was a bit slower, muttered unhappily, this car is so big, yet there are only 2 seats in the back. The Santana we rode in with the comrades could fit 3 people back there. From inside the car, Gina replied, You don't understand. There are really only 2 seats back here, and there's a huge armrest in the middle. It's leather, and it feels amazing to rest your arms on it. Yadira quickly sat down and said excitedly, Really? Let me try it too. Samantha looked at the spacious, luxurious rear seats with envy. She noticed the oversized armrest console with an LCD screen and various control buttons and said reluctantly, I want to experience that too. Yadira waved her hand impatiently. You'll get your turn next time. Hurry up and take the front seat, Lady Wilson is waiting for us. With no other choice, Samantha reluctantly walked around to the passenger seat and sat down. In truth, although this Mercedes-Benz was not the ultimate luxury car, it was still an S-Class, worth less than 1/5 of a Rolls-Royce. However, to Gina and her companions, this vehicle was already the pinnacle of luxury they could imagine. If a Rolls-Royce were parked right in front of them, they might not even recognize it. Gina felt an indescribable thrill as she sat in the back seat of the Mercedes-Benz. She couldn't help thinking, riding in a luxury car and living in a big villa. Is my life finally turning around? Lady Wilson is truly my benefactor. Pride surged in her heart and she silently vowed, Lady Wilson has treated me so well. I must repay her kindness. From now on, I'll treat her like my own mother. The Mercedes-Benz drove steadily and smoothly the entire way. Thanks to special access privileges, the car was able to enter the first phase of Thompson First directly and stopped in front of Villa A06. After parking, the driver entered the administrator password to unlock the outer gate, then helped Gina and the others register their fingerprints. Once your fingerprints are recorded, you'll be able to enter and exit without keys, he explained. Gina stared at the massive courtyard, barely able to contain her excitement. Driver, if we're tired, can we really just use our fingerprints to get inside? She asked. Yes, the driver nodded. Both the courtyard gate and the villa's front door are connected to a smart home system. Once your fingerprints are registered, you can come and go freely. You may go in now. From this moment on, treat this place as your own home, don't be shy. Gina asked hurriedly, where is Lady Wilson? Why hasn't she come out? The driver smiled. Lady Wilson had something to take care of, so she asked me to pick you up first. You can go inside and choose your rooms. There are many vacant rooms in the villa. Oh, that's great. Gina grabbed her blanket and rushed toward the villa excitedly. Not wanting to fall behind, Yadira and Samantha hurried after her. Gina pressed her fingerprint against the door lock, and with a soft click, the door opened. She pushed the door open eagerly and was instantly stunned by the luxurious interior. Chapter 1934. This villa was undoubtedly the largest and most extravagant residence in the urban area of Oris Hill. Its interior design was lavish and flamboyant, with wealth displayed boldly in every corner. With just a single glance, Gina and the others were completely dumbfounded. Before arriving, they had imagined what Lady Wilson's villa might look like. But even their wildest fantasies couldn't compare to the reality before them. Samantha gasped, her voice trembling. What kind of villa is this? It's basically a palace, isn't it? No way. Yadira exclaimed excitedly. This place is way more luxurious than any palace. Holy shit, just look at that sofa, it's gorgeous. I have to lie on it. Before she even finished speaking, she rushed toward the sofa. I want to try it too. Samantha dropped her blanket and ran after her the moment she saw Yadira move. This sofa was a top-tier European luxury piece imported directly from Italy. It had originally been custom-made for European royalty and later shipped overseas by the villa's previous owner at a cost of over $1 million. Unlike rosewood furniture, which is expensive, stiff, and uncomfortable, like sleeping on a pile of gold bricks, this European-style furniture emphasized both luxury and comfort. Rosewood furniture was more suitable as an investment, while this European furniture was true high-end luxury meant to be enjoyed. The two women jumped onto the sofa without even taking off their shoes, stepping all over the pristine surface as they scrambled to find the most comfortable position. Hey! Slow down! Gina protested. Don't sit on someone else's sofa with your shoes on, you'll dirty it. Samantha grinned carelessly. What's the big deal? You always say to make ourselves at home. I wear shoes on the sofa at home too. Yadira laughed excitedly. Sister Gina, come and feel this. This sofa is insanely comfortable. I bet even the Jade Emperor's throne in heaven can't compare. Really? Gina laughed. If it's that good, I have to try it. She walked over to a single-seat sofa and sat down. Holy shit, it's so soft. Gina exclaimed as she sank into it, her face lighting up with joy. Samantha, lying nearby, urged her, Sister Gina, you have to lie down. It's even more comfortable that way. She jumped up, grabbed Gina, and pulled her down. Come on. Try lying down, you won't want to get back up. Gina lay down and laughed happily. This is incredible. I could fall asleep right here. Samantha chuckled. If the sofas are this comfortable, just imagine how amazing the beds must be. Yadira quickly said, should we go check out the bedrooms? This villa is huge, we can definitely each have our own room. Gina replied, let's wait for Lady Wilson to come back and let her assign the rooms. Samantha pouted. I can't wait that long. The rooms must be different sizes. I want a big one facing south so I can bask in the sun every day. I want a south-facing room too. Yadira added immediately. Hearing that, Gina jumped up from the sofa and rushed toward the stairs, shouting, no fucking way. I'm choosing first. Chapter 1935. Lady Wilson had no idea that while she was at the hospital, Gina had already moved into her home. In great haste, she and Wendy rushed to the hospital, where they soon found Christopher and Harold. The father and son lay on their beds, their bodies wrapped in thick layers of plaster, looking like half mummies. Although their injuries were not life-threatening, both had suffered fractures in their limbs and were completely unable to move. They could only lie there, groaning softly in pain. The moment Lady Wilson stepped into the ward and saw them, her heart sank. She hurried to their bedside and cried out, "Christopher! Harold! What on earth happened to you?" Seeing their grandmother, both Christopher and Harold completely lost control of their emotions and burst into tears. Harold cried the hardest, his sobs filled with grievance. Wendy couldn't hold back either. Tears streamed down her face as she asked, "Dad, brother, how did this happen to you?" With bloodshot eyes, Harold cried miserably, "Grandma. Dad and I were beaten by Donald's men. I feel so fucking wronged. I was trying to help that bastard, and instead of thanking us, he sent his people to beat us half to death. They're nothing but savage animals." Christopher let out a long sigh and said bitterly, "Mom, now I finally understand what it means when people say companions can be more dangerous than tigers. Someone like Donald is not someone we can afford to associate with anymore. We must stay far away from him." Lady Wilson was anxious and confused. She pressed urgently, "What exactly happened? Tell me everything, slowly and clearly." Christopher then recounted the entire sequence of events. Only then did Lady Wilson realize that while handling Elaine's kidnapping, they had accidentally gotten involved with an international fraudster. Worse still, Donald, the crafty old fox, had also been deceived by that fraudster. In order to curry favor and shift blame, he had cruelly allowed his men to beat her son and grandson. As the truth sank in, Lady Wilson collapsed onto the chair beside the bed, crying out in grief and fury, "How could this happen? If you hadn't interfered with Elaine's situation today, that fraudster would have torn her family apart. You tried to help her, and instead, you ended up like this. Not only were you beaten half to death, you even helped Interpol catch the scammer, which indirectly saved Elaine from disaster." Harold cried even harder, wailing in despair, "I can't fucking believe this. We lost everything because of Elaine. This is the biggest loss I've ever suffered in my entire life. I, Harold, have never been so humiliated. Wendy, slap me twice, I need to feel something other than this pain and rage." Wendy hurriedly tried to comfort him. "Brother, what's done is done. Don't torture yourself anymore. What matters now is whether you and Dad can recover safely." Harold choked back his tears and said hoarsely, "We'll recover, but it'll take time. The doctor said we won't be able to take care of ourselves for several months. We'll have to eat, sleep, and relieve ourselves in bed, most likely staying in the hospital with full-time caregivers." Lady Wilson immediately asked, "Harold, what about Mr. Webb? After being fooled by that scammer, didn't he give you any compensation?" "Compensation? Don't even think about it." Christopher snapped angrily. "That old dog Donald was arrested by Interpol. He's completely fucked." "What?" Lady Wilson gasped. "So you two suffered all this for nothing?" Christopher instantly understood what his mother was thinking. She must be thinking that since Donald's men beat Harold and me, he should compensate us. After all, my mother has always had sharp eyes when it comes to money. Feeling bitter and helpless, Christopher said, "Mom, can you pay the hospital fees first so we can be transferred to a proper ward? As for Donald, if that bastard ever gets out, I'll definitely demand an explanation from him." "Of course." Lady Wilson replied decisively, nodding. "I'll handle the expenses." Chapter 1936. With that, Lady Wilson turned around and hurried out of the ward. She went straight to the billing office and said, "I'm here to pay the hospital expenses for Christopher and Harold." The staff member checked the records and replied, "The total treatment cost is $26,700, plus an $80,000 hospitalization deposit. The total comes to $106,700. Lady Wilson's heart clenched when she heard the amount. $100,000 isn't pocket change. If Donald doesn't pay me back 10 times over, I won't even be able to sleep peacefully at night. Suppressing her irritation, she took out her bank card and handed it over. Swipe it. The cashier took the card, entered the amount into the POS machine, and said, "Please enter your password." Lady Wilson quickly entered the password and confirmed the transaction. However, the POS machine didn't print a receipt. The cashier frowned at the screen and said, "Your card is frozen. Please use another card." What? Frozen? Lady Wilson's face darkened instantly. That's impossible. I have tens of millions in this account. After Donald had helped the Wilson family pay off their debts, the bank had unfrozen her account. She had even returned part of the collateral afterward. Later, Donald invested heavily in the Wilson family's business, and she also managed to gather additional funds on her own. At present, she clearly had over $20 million in liquid cash, money she had carefully saved as her retirement fund. Hearing that her card was suddenly frozen made her panic. The cashier, uninterested in her explanation, said impatiently, "I don't know how much money you have. The system shows your card is frozen. If you have a problem, contact your bank." Flustered, Lady Wilson immediately took out her phone and called the bank. After waiting a long time to get through, she shouted angrily, "Why the hell is my card frozen? Who gave you the authority to do this?" The customer service representative replied calmly, "Madam, I'm sorry, but our system confirms that your card has indeed been frozen. This was done due to a property preservation order issued by the court at the request of your creditor." What the fuck? Lady Wilson exploded. "I paid off all my debts long ago. There shouldn't be any creditors at all." The representative's tone turned cold. "Madam, please mind your language. I can see the property preservation order here. Your creditor is Donald. He previously helped you repay over $10 million in debt and invested tens of millions into your company. He has now withdrawn all loans and investments, which triggered the freezing of your assets." What? Lady Wilson felt as though a bolt of lightning had struck her head. Donald, divested? Could it be that the Wilson family was about to fall back into poverty, drowning in debt once again? Her legs went weak as despair surged through her chest. Chapter 1937. As Lady Wilson stood there in a daze, the hospital toll collector asked, "Are you still planning to make the payment? If not, we may have to discharge the two patients." Without hesitation, Lady Wilson pulled out another bank card, selected one, and handed it to the collector, saying, "Please try this one." The toll collector took the card and swiped it. After Lady Wilson entered the password, he shook his head and said, "This one is frozen as well." "Then try this one," she insisted. Lady Wilson handed over card after card in quick succession, but every time she received the same answer, all of them were frozen. This left Lady Wilson utterly desperate. Just as she was about to give up, her phone rang. She answered hurriedly, only to hear the caller say, "Hello, madam. I'm calling to inform you that all enterprises, villas, vehicles, antique paintings, and other properties under your name have been sealed by our court. You must immediately repay Mr. Webb's investment. Otherwise, all your assets will be auctioned." Lady Wilson burst into tears and cried out, You're trying to drive me to my grave." The caller maintained an official tone and replied, "I'm sorry, but we are acting in accordance with the law. Your creditor's claims far exceed your total assets. If the debt is not repaid on time, we will proceed with compulsory enforcement." Choking back her emotions, Lady Wilson said, "My son and grandson are both in the hospital. You still expect me to pay for their treatment, don't you? I'm sorry, but as a negative equity holder, any money you obtain must be used to repay Mr. Webb first." "You're ridiculous!" Lady Wilson shouted angrily. "What's the difference between you and a bloodsucker?" "I'm sorry, but repaying debts is a legal obligation," the caller replied coldly. Lady Wilson roared furiously, "God damn you! You and your mother should go to hell. How dare you bully an old woman like me? You'll pay for this." With that, she slammed the phone down. Meanwhile, the toll collector awkwardly asked, "Madam, are you still going to pay? If not, could you please step aside? Others are waiting." Lady Wilson scowled and snapped, "Stop asking me for money. I can't even afford to eat, why the hell should I pay anything?" Grinding her teeth, she immediately dialed Donald's number. Although she had no idea what his situation was, she felt she had no choice but to try. To her surprise, the call connected almost instantly. As soon as Donald answered, he asked irritably, "What do you want?" Lady Wilson instantly switched to a flattering tone. "Oh, Mr. Webb. I heard you're suddenly planning to divest. Didn't we agree on a long-term partnership? Your sudden withdrawal, what's going on? Is there some misunderstanding?" Chapter 1938. Donald replied coldly, "There's no misunderstanding on my end. I've completely lost confidence in your family, and I no longer expect anything from you. If you're not going to act, then hurry up and divest." Lady Wilson pleaded desperately, "Mr. Webb. Was it because of my son and grandson's actions today? If they dissatisfied you in any way, just say the word, and I'll make sure they do better next time. I beg you, please give our family another chance." Donald said impatiently, "I've already given you chances. The problem is your family's complete lack of progress. Stop begging me." Feeling hopeless, Lady Wilson suddenly remembered the villa and said urgently, "Mr. Webb, we signed an agreement about the villa. You promised we could stay there for 10 years. You can't just go back on your word. If you do, our family will have nowhere to live." Donald sneered. "You can stay in the villa for now, but you'd better make it clear to your son, if he dares to divorce Hannah, I'll kick your entire family out without hesitation." Lady Wilson's anger surged. "Mr. Webb, you don't even need us to deal with Charlie anymore. Why do you insist that my son stay with that shameless woman Hannah? No man can tolerate being cuckolded. As long as Hannah is still around, my son will never get over it." Donald replied indifferently, "Whether your son can get over it has nothing to do with me. If you're unhappy, you're free to leave Thompson First and hand the villa over to Hannah." At that moment, Lady Wilson clearly realized how dangerous her situation was. If she continued arguing, she might lose even the right to stay in the villa. Having already tasted the bitterness of homelessness, she was determined never to endure it again. She thought bitterly, "As long as I can keep the right to live in Thompson First Villa, I can tolerate my son wearing a green hat. I don't have many years left, I don't want to suffer like that again in my old age." With a heavy heart, she clenched her teeth and said, "Mr. Webb, don't worry. I'll make sure Hannah stays in the Wilson family." Donald said coldly, "Looks like you finally understand. Don't contact me again." Lady Wilson hurriedly said, "Mr. Webb, please don't hang up yet. I still have one more favor to ask." "Speak," he said. She quickly explained, "My son and grandson are seriously injured, and we don't have the money to cover their treatment. Could you lend us a few $100,000? Donald scoffed. "You want me to lend you hundreds of thousands? Don't forget, you still owe me tens of millions. You've got some nerve." Tears streamed down Lady Wilson's face as she begged, "But my son and grandson can't just be left like this." Donald replied calmly, "I've already heard they're out of danger and have been treated. You can take them home and look after them." Lady Wilson said weakly, "But neither of them can take care of themselves. Hiring caregivers will cost a fortune." Donald smiled faintly. "Don't worry. I'll notify the hospital to cover all their medical expenses. You won't need to pay a cent. You can take them home whenever you're ready. I've also arranged 3 caregivers to help you. Just wait for them to arrive." At that moment, Lady Wilson felt a trace of warmth from Donald. She thought to herself, "At least Mr. Webb is letting us stay in the villa and has arranged help. Maybe he was just angry. In the future, he might still consider reinvesting in the Wilson family." Overcome with gratitude, she quickly said, "Thank you so much, Mr. Webb." Chapter 1939. At this moment, Elaine was facing an extremely tragic situation. She had first been taken by Don Albert's men to the best orthopedic hospital in Orris Hill, where a top specialist was immediately arranged to operate on her knee. For injuries like hers, the most effective solution was to perform surgery as soon as possible. The doctors fixed her knee using steel plates and nails, then encased it in thick plaster to ensure stability. This treatment offered the best chance for recovery. After the surgery, Elaine was sent back to her ward, where several of Don Albert's men were already waiting. One of them spoke to her and said, "Ms. Elaine, your contribution in capturing Caroline was outstanding. Therefore, all of your medical expenses will be covered by Interpol." Looking at her right leg, tightly wrapped in plaster, Elaine burst into tears and cried, "Comrade Interpol, you must make sure Caroline is punished." The man nodded solemnly and replied, "Ms. Elaine, rest assured. She will definitely pay the price." He then added, "However, there is an important matter concerning your personal safety that I need to discuss with you." Sensing the seriousness of his tone, Elaine hurriedly said, "Please go ahead." The man said gravely, "Caroline is part of a large transnational fraud syndicate. There is an enormous criminal network behind her, operating across several countries. Although we have successfully arrested Caroline, many of her accomplices are still at large. Therefore, it is absolutely crucial that you do not reveal anything about this case. Otherwise, there is a high risk of retaliation from this fraud organization." Hearing this, Elaine immediately burst into tears again. "Oh my God! Will this nightmare ever end? Last time, because of this mess, I was detained and suffered so much that my leg was broken." She cried hysterically, "Just when my leg was finally healing and I hadn't even had the chance to jump around yet, I've ended up like this again. If they come after me for revenge, what am I supposed to do? Why is my life so damn miserable?" The man quickly comforted her, saying, "Ms. Elaine, this situation is different from the previous one." Still sobbing, Elaine asked, "What's different? You still haven't caught all of them. As long as even one of them is free, they can come after me. Now that I helped catch their leader, Caroline, they definitely won't let me off. They already broke my leg once, next time, they might kill me." The man explained patiently, "Ms. Elaine, we have handled this case very carefully. Caroline's arrest is being kept strictly confidential. As long as we don't release any information and you keep silent, no one will suspect your involvement." Only then did Elaine feel slightly relieved. She sighed and asked, "But look at me. My leg is broken, my face is swollen like a pig's head, and Caroline even yanked my hair out. How am I supposed to explain this to my family?" The man responded immediately, "That's actually easy to explain. How did you explain your last stay at the detention center?" Elaine replied, "I told them I was tricked into joining a pyramid scheme and ended up being detained as one of its members." The man nodded and said, "This time, you can say that several MLM organizations joined forces to retaliate against you, which led to your injuries. Your family should believe it." Elaine sighed deeply. "I guess that's the only choice I have." The man then handed her phone back to her and said, "Ms. Elaine, you may contact your family now. To avoid arousing suspicion, I'll step outside." Elaine nodded and reminded him anxiously, "Comrade Interpol, please make sure everything stays confidential. Caroline's people must not find out that I helped capture her, or I'll be dead for sure." The man replied firmly, "Don't worry. We will strictly maintain confidentiality." Then he added, "Ms. Elaine, take good care of yourself. I'll be leaving now." After he left, Elaine picked up her phone and immediately dialed Claire. As soon as the call connected, she wailed, "Claire, my dear. Come to the hospital quickly. Mom's leg is broken again. Why is my fate so damn cruel?" Chapter 1940. Claire was just about to leave work when she received the shocking call. She cried out, "Mom, what happened to you? Why did you break your leg again?" With tears streaming down her face, Elaine said, "Don't even ask. Mom offended some people from that pyramid scheme. They caught me and beat the hell out of me. My hair was a mess, my face was swollen, and my leg was broken." "Ugh! What?" Claire gasped. "Did you call the police?" Elaine sobbed, "I did. The police have already arrested them. Just come and see me, please." Claire hurriedly asked, "Which hospital are you in?" "I'll go there right now." Choking back her tears, Elaine said, "Oris Hill Orthopedic Hospital. Please hurry." "Okay, Mom, hold on. I'm coming now," Claire replied urgently. After hanging up, Claire rushed to the hospital and immediately called Charlie. At that moment, Charlie had already returned home and was sitting casually in the living room watching TV, pretending nothing had happened. Jacob had also just come back and was preparing to make tea to drink with Charlie. When Charlie received Claire's call, he already knew exactly what had happened, but he deliberately acted surprised. "Hey, honey, are you off work already?" Claire replied anxiously, "Where are you right now?" "I'm at home," Charlie answered calmly. "What about Dad?" Claire asked. "Dad's home too. He just got back," Charlie replied. Claire urged urgently, "Then you and Dad should drive to the orthopedic hospital immediately." "Mom is there." "I'm on my way too, let's meet at the hospital." Pretending to be shocked, Charlie asked, "What? Mom's in the hospital again? What happened this time?" Claire said nervously, "She was retaliated against by those MLM people. They broke her leg again. I don't know the details yet, I need to get there first." Charlie said without hesitation, "All right. Dad and I will go over immediately." "Okay, see you at the hospital," Claire said before hanging up. Jacob, who had overheard everything while preparing tea, asked, "Charlie, what happened?" Charlie replied, "Mom was retaliated against by pyramid scheme people. Her leg is broken again. We need to go to the hospital." Jacob was stunned. "Elaine's leg is broken again? Is that really true?" Charlie glanced at him and said awkwardly, "Dad, you look a little too happy about this." Jacob said seriously, "You're right, I shouldn't be gloating. But just imagining Elaine with a plastered leg, hobbling around on crutches, makes me want to laugh. Is that too cruel?" Charlie shook his head helplessly. "Just don't laugh when you see her later." Jacob nodded. "Don't worry, I'll hold it in." Then he quickly put away the tea set and urged, "Let's go, son-in-law. I really want to see how miserable she looks." Chapter 1941. When Charlie and Jacob arrived at the hospital, Claire was already there. As they entered the ward, Jacob and his son-in-law saw Elaine holding Claire's hand tightly, tears streaming down her face as she cried bitterly. Claire was also wiping away her tears, looking deeply distressed. Charlie had heard that his mother-in-law had gone through a terrible ordeal, but since he had been outside, he had not witnessed what happened inside. Moreover, after Elaine was taken away by Don Albert's men, she had been sent straight to the hospital, so Charlie knew nothing about her exact condition. Seeing Elaine's bruised nose, swollen face, and the conspicuous patch of hair missing from her forehead, Charlie let out a heavy sigh and said, "Oh, my poor mother-in-law. This is truly tragic. Who would have thought Cynthia would just run off like that? What the hell were they even looking for?" When Elaine saw Charlie, all the grievances she had been holding in immediately burst out. She cried, "Good son-in-law, Mom has suffered so much." After saying that, she completely broke down, sobbing uncontrollably. Charlie hurried over and asked with feigned concern, "Mom, what happened to you?" Elaine waved her hand dismissively and wiped her tears. "Oh, don't mention it, don't mention it. These are just bitter tears." Seeing her in such a miserable state, Jacob couldn't bring himself to laugh and simply stood there in silence. Elaine shot him an irritated glance and snapped, "Jacob, what are you doing here?" Jacob quickly replied, "What do you think? Of course I'm here to see you." "Here to see me?" Elaine retorted angrily. "I think you came here just to watch me suffer." Jacob thought to himself, "She's not wrong, but there's no way I can admit that." So he replied awkwardly, "What nonsense are you talking about? Even if we're separated or divorced, we still spent half our lives together. Seeing you like this, I can't help but feel sorry for you." Elaine glared at him fiercely. "You feel sorry? You? I know exactly what kind of twisted thoughts you have. You want me to be miserable forever." Jacob was stunned by how accurately she read him, but he didn't dare say a word in response. Fortunately, Claire stepped in. "Mom, don't argue with Dad. He came because he cares about you." Elaine snorted coldly. "I don't need his concern." She then turned back to Charlie, her face full of sorrow. Good son-in-law, it was the same group from that MLM scheme last time who tormented me again. Mom really has terrible luck. I'll have to wear this plaster for months. That means I won't be able to cook for you or go anywhere. The days ahead will be unbearably boring. Charlie immediately understood what Elaine was hinting at. So he said generously, Mom, if that's the case, I'll handle the cooking from now on. I'll also transfer you $100,000 as pocket money. You'll be bored staying at home, so feel free to shop online and entertain yourself. Elaine was deeply moved by his words. To be honest, she hadn't expected Charlie to give her any money at all. Originally, she thought Charlie would simply continue giving her $30,000 a month for groceries and another $10,000 for cooking expenses. She wouldn't dare touch the food budget, but the cooking money was something she had always relied on. Now that she couldn't walk properly or cook, she was worried Charlie might cut that $10,000 altogether. Chapter 1942. Elaine deliberately acted even more pitiful, hoping Charlie wouldn't deduct the $10,000 she earned for her hard work. To her complete surprise, Charlie was not only generous but directly gave her a full $100,000. Hearing this, Elaine felt an overwhelming sense of relief and gratitude. She exclaimed excitedly, "You really are the best son-in-law. Your mother must have accumulated blessings over countless lifetimes to have a son-in-law like you. What a damn blessing." Claire was left completely speechless. What stunned Claire the most was that her mother sounded utterly sincere. Elaine didn't seem to be flattering Charlie at all, she genuinely meant every word. Charlie hadn't expected that a mere $100,000 would have such a powerful effect on Elaine. He laughed inwardly and thought, so it turns out that winning over this ridiculous mother-in-law only takes a bit of money. As long as I throw some cash at her, everything's fine. But after thinking it over, he realized it wasn't that simple. In the past, Elaine had controlled the household finances and had at least $2 million at her disposal. Back then, even giving her $200,000 would have been difficult. But ever since she was driven out by Hannah and locked up in the detention center, her situation had completely changed, and her expectations had plummeted. Charlie didn't waste time. After speaking, he immediately transferred $100,000 to Elaine's bank card. When Elaine saw the bank notification, her face lit up with joy. "My son-in-law really loves me," she exclaimed happily. At that moment, the doctor came in for rounds. Claire quickly asked, "Doctor, how is my mother doing now?" The female doctor replied, "She mainly needs rest and recovery. It will take some time, but there's nothing else to worry about. You can either keep her in the hospital for observation or take her home to recuperate." Claire suggested, "Mom, why don't we take you home to recover? It'll be easier for us to take care of you there. Besides, the Chinese New Year is coming. Staying in the hospital feels too lonely." Elaine immediately agreed. "I hate this damn hospital. I can't wait to leave. This isn't the first time my leg's been broken, so I know the drill. Let me finish this 4-drip, and I can go home." Meanwhile, at Oris Hill People's Hospital, Christopher and Harold were being forcibly discharged because they couldn't pay their medical bills. The father and son lay helplessly on a movable stretcher as Lady Wilson and Wendy pushed them toward the parking lot. Wendy had driven the newly purchased Bentley to the hospital. However, the Bentley wasn't suitable for transporting injured patients, and there was no way for them to lie down properly. They needed an ambulance to get home. But calling an ambulance required money. The problem was that the entire family was completely broke. All their bank cards and electronic payment accounts had been frozen. They didn't even have cash to pay the parking fee after leaving the hospital. Just as they were at a loss, 2 middle-aged men walked up and asked, "Are you Lady Wilson?" Lady Wilson quickly replied, "Yes, that's me." "Who are you?" The men said, "We work for Mr. Webb. Out of consideration for your situation, he has arranged an ambulance to take all 4 of you back to the villa." Lady Wilson finally breathed a sigh of relief and said gratefully, "That's wonderful. Could you please have the ambulance take my son and grandson back first? I'll drive home with my granddaughter." The man shook his head. "I'm sorry, but all of you must take the ambulance together. This Bentley was purchased with Mr. Webb's money, and he has instructed us to reclaim it. Chapter 1943. When Lady Wilson heard the other party's words, it felt as if a bolt of lightning had struck her. She froze on the spot. With a desperate tone, she pleaded, "Please, brothers, could you call Mr. Webb for me? Our family is completely drained now. I beg him to show us some mercy and leave us a way out. Just let us keep the Bentley." She hurriedly added, "Even if it's only temporary, just for a few years." The response from the other side was cold and indifferent. "I'm sorry, but Mr. Webb has made it very clear that a family like yours isn't worth his time. He no longer wishes to have any dealings with you. Allowing you to stay in the villa is already a great act of mercy. If you continue being unreasonable, Mr. Webb can take back the villa at any time." A wave of anguish surged through Lady Wilson's heart, but she didn't dare say another word. Wendy, standing beside her, could no longer hold back her tears. She cried, "Please, tell Mr. Webb again. Look at my father and brother, our family has no credit left, and all our hard work has only brought us exhaustion and ruin." The other party interrupted her coldly, "Say one more word of nonsense, and the villa will truly be gone." Lady Wilson immediately snapped, "Wendy, stop it. Hand over the car keys, now." Furious yet powerless, Wendy wiped away her tears and, with trembling hands, took out the car key and handed it over. The man accepted the key and said to the Wilson family, "All right, an ambulance has already been arranged for you. Your family of 5 should hurry back. We're leaving now." With that, the two men got into the Bentley and drove away without even looking back. Soon after, an old ambulance pulled up in front of them and came to a stop. The driver rolled down the window and asked, "Are you going to Thompson First?" "Yes," Lady Wilson replied heavily. "Thank you for taking the 4 of us to Thompson First A06. The driver and the young man in the passenger seat got out and helped lift Christopher and Harold onto the ambulance. Then they turned to Lady Wilson and Wendy and said, "You two can squeeze in after them." Lady Wilson nodded and said to Wendy, "Wendy, the ambulance is quite high. Help your grandma." Still choking back tears, Wendy rubbed her red eyes and replied, "All right, Grandma." Hannah hurried over and said cheerfully, "Mom, I'll help you too." But Lady Wilson exploded with rage. "Get away. Don't touch me." Hannah was stunned by the sudden outburst and asked in a wounded voice, "Mom, what did I do to upset you?" Lady Wilson clenched her teeth and snapped, "You've offended me in every possible way. If it weren't for you, our family wouldn't be in this situation. If it weren't for you, we wouldn't have lost more than 10 million. If it weren't for you, Christopher wouldn't be mocked endlessly by Elaine. If it weren't for you, Christopher and Harold wouldn't be lying here half dead. This is all your fault." Overwhelmed, Hannah burst into tears. Chapter 1944. Deeply hurt, Hannah cried out through her tears, "Mom, I know you were worried about me being pregnant while working in that black coal mine, but I was only trying to survive. If I hadn't done that, I might not even be alive today. Besides, I didn't willingly give up everything I once cared about. I deceived Elaine out of her money and villa so our family could live better. Everything I did, every sacrifice I made, was for this family." When Lady Wilson heard her mention pregnancy, it was as if she had been slapped twice across the face. Furious, she screamed, "You shameless B***tch. How dare you bring up pregnancy? Your family's values are rotten, your morals are disgusting, and you are utterly shameless. If Donald hadn't protected you, I would have thrown you out of this house long ago." Her anger left her gasping for breath, but she still forced herself to continue. "And don't forget, when you crawled out of that black coal kiln, not only were you pregnant with a bastard child, you also brought back a filthy venereal disease. You infected my son. Do you really think I don't know?" Hannah's face flushed red with humiliation. Just as she stood there, unable to defend herself, the driver interrupted impatiently, "Are you people leaving or not? If you want to argue, drag those 2 crippled patients out and fight it out somewhere else. We're on the clock and don't have time for this shit." Lady Wilson immediately softened her tone and said, "Driver, please don't be angry. We're leaving, right now. She then shot Hannah a vicious glare and, with Wendy's help, climbed into the ambulance. Although Wendy felt sympathy for her mother, she didn't dare speak up. Instead, she quietly motioned for Hannah to get into the ambulance first so they could deal with everything later. Hannah understood all too well that Thompson First A06 was the only place she could go now. She clenched her teeth, swallowed her anger, and climbed into the ambulance, sitting silently in a corner. Once all 5 family members were inside, the ambulance immediately headed toward Thompson First. Inside the ambulance, Christopher lay on the stretcher and looked at Lady Wilson with tears in his eyes. "Mom, what are we supposed to do now? Our family is completely ruined." Lady Wilson wiped away her tears and replied painfully, "I truly don't know. We're broke, your father is injured like this, and the cost of treatment, medication, and rehabilitation is terrifying. It feels like there's no way out." Harold spoke up, "Grandma, once we get back to Thompson First, let's see if there's anything valuable we can sell. There are still plenty of good things in the villa, especially in the wine cellar. We should be able to make some money." Lady Wilson nodded slowly. "At this point, that's our only option." Wendy then asked, "By the way, Grandma, those people said Donald arranged 3 helpers for us. Where are they?" Lady Wilson frowned. "I don't know. Maybe he arranged them, but they just haven't arrived yet." Wendy sighed deeply. If he really sends 3 helpers, that means Donald still has a bit of conscience. Otherwise, with Dad and brother like this, it'll be hell for just the 3 of us. "No kidding," Lady Wilson replied grimly. "Donald is angry with us, but he probably still sees some value in us. No matter how furious he is now, if we get another chance in the future, we must prove ourselves." Wendy nodded and sighed again. "I really hope those 3 helpers arrive soon. It would be best if they're already waiting at Thompson First. Otherwise, I have no idea how we'll even get Dad and brother settled once we get home." Chapter 1945. Currently, in the A06 villa of Thompson First, Gina, Yadira, and Samantha had just finished a delicious meal. They looked around, waiting for Lady Wilson's family to return, but their hunger and discomfort were growing. Fortunately, they discovered that Hannah had left some ingredients in the kitchen. She had prepared them but never had time to cook. Taking matters into their own hands, they decided to whip up a fantastic meal. Before Donald's financial decline, the Wilson family had enjoyed a comfortable lifestyle. Donald had invested in the Wilson Group, reviving its fortunes and enabling Lady Wilson to regain a lifestyle reminiscent of her earlier days. Their living standards had significantly improved. Today, Hannah had intentionally prepared an abundance of ingredients to celebrate Christopher and Harold's success in getting Elaine. However, these ingredients went uneaten by the Wilson family, much to the delight of Gina and her friends. Now, the 3 of them lounged on the sofa, their bellies full and round, watching TV. This television had been brought up from the first basement floor after Harold sold the larger one. It was noticeably smaller and felt somewhat out of place in the vast living room. As they watched, Gina remarked, "Lady Wilson has such a lovely villa, but this TV seems a bit small. It doesn't quite fit in such a large space." Samantha looked surprised. "Isn't this TV at least 50 inches? The one in my village chief's house isn't even that big, how can it be small?" "Well," Yadira chimed in, "I've never watched anything on a TV this big before." Gina waved her hand dismissively. "You just don't get it. The TVs wealthy people have usually start at 70 or 80 inches. Last year, when I worked at a housekeeping company in the city, I cleaned houses that had TVs much bigger than this one." Samantha asked curiously, "Why would anyone need a TV that big? Isn't it tiring to move your eyes around on such a huge screen?" Gina laughed. "Come on. By your logic, when people go to the movies, their eyes would just fall out." Samantha scratched her head. "I've never been to a movie theater, so I wouldn't know." Gina replied, "I have. I even cleaned in movie theaters. Let me tell you, the screen there is bigger than the wall in this living room. Just imagine that." Yadira, intrigued, asked, "Bigger than this wall? That sounds terrifying." Gina said, "You both need to get out more. One day, we'll ask Lady Wilson to take us to the movies, and then you'll see. As they chatted, an ambulance pulled into the yard. But with the TV volume cranked up, the girls were oblivious to the commotion outside. Once the ambulance came to a stop, the driver and the co-pilot hopped out and roughly pulled Christopher and Harold from the vehicle. Instead of using the mobile beds, they unceremoniously placed them on the marble floor in the yard. Seeing this, Lady Wilson rushed to the car and exclaimed, "Aren't you going to help us get them inside?" The driver, sounding impatient, replied, "The customer only requested to drop you off at the location. If you want help getting them in, it'll cost you $200 per person." Lady Wilson responded, "I don't have any cash." The driver frowned. "You live in such a fancy villa, surely you have at least $400? Lady Wilson explained urgently, "I don't carry cash anymore when I go out. Our mobile payments and bank cards are all frozen, so there's genuinely no way." Chapter 1946. The driver waved dismissively. "Then we'll be helpless." Wendy snapped in frustration, "You're doctors. Shouldn't you help the injured?" The driver turned to her seriously. "Listen, little girl, we're not doctors. This isn't a 120 ambulance from a public hospital, it's a transfer ambulance operated by a private company, like a taxi service. We drive to earn money, and we only work when we get paid. Do you understand?" Wendy was left speechless. With a hint of disdain, the driver added, "Who lives in such a nice villa and can't pay $400? After that, he and his companion climbed back into the vehicle and started to drive away. Wendy stomped her feet in anger, while Lady Wilson sighed in exasperation. She turned to Wendy and Hannah. "I'm too old for this. You two need to carry Christopher inside first, then come back for Harold, all right?" Wendy and Hannah knew they had no other choice. Gritting their teeth, they mustered all their strength and carefully lifted Christopher. Christopher winced in pain. "Please be gentle, it hurts too much." Lady Wilson shook her head, sighing. "There's really no other option at this point, so just bear with it." She then instructed, "You two help Christopher while I go open the door." With great effort, Wendy and Hannah moved Christopher toward the door. As Lady Wilson prepared to swipe her fingerprints to unlock it, she suddenly heard the TV playing inside and asked Wendy, "Did you turn off the TV when you left?" Wendy shook her head. "I was in such a rush that I completely forgot." "All right then." Lady Wilson didn't think much of it and opened the door without hesitation. As the door swung open, she was startled to find 3 people lounging on the sofa in the living room. Panicking, she exclaimed, "Who are you?" Upon hearing the commotion, the 3 individuals turned their heads and immediately recognized Lady Wilson and Wendy, the 2 former inmates. Gina rushed over, bubbling with excitement. "Lady! You're back! We've been waiting for you." Lady Wilson was taken aback, struggling to comprehend the situation. She recognized Gina and the others but was baffled as to why they were in her home. "Gina, what are you doing here?" she asked in disbelief. Gina replied enthusiastically, "Lady, you can't be serious. Didn't you bail us out and save us?" "Me?" Lady Wilson's expression turned dazed. "There must be some sort of misunderstanding." "Misunderstanding?" Gina pressed on. "Lady, you're grateful for how we cared for you in the detention center, so you invited us to live with you." Yadira chimed in, "Exactly, Lady Wilson. It's so generous of you. You even sent a Mercedes to pick us up. I've never been in such a fancy car before." Gina added sincerely, "Lady, we're truly grateful to you. We've all agreed to stay here and take care of you like your own family, ensuring you have a comfortable retirement." A wave of despair washed over Lady Wilson as she urgently said, "Gina, please listen. There's been a mistake, I didn't save you. I never intended for you to come live with me." Chapter 1947. Lady Wilson was the kind of person who looked forward rather than back. During her time in the detention center, she relied heavily on Gina for support, treating her with the utmost kindness, as if Gina were her own daughter. However, deep down, Lady Wilson held a dismissive view of someone like Gina, whom she considered a vulgar village woman. Once she was released from the detention center, Lady Wilson completely erased Gina from her mind. To her, Gina was merely a tool she had used during a challenging time, and once that period passed, she had no desire to maintain any connection with her. What surprised her, however, was Gina's sudden and unexpected appearance at her home. Gina was taken aback when Lady Wilson denied any involvement in their situation. From Gina's perspective, it was clearly Lady Wilson who had rescued them, arranged for their transportation to Thompson First, and managed their entry through the gate. Why was she now denying it? Puzzled, Gina asked, "Lady, what's going on? You were the one who did all these good deeds, so why won't you admit it?" "Exactly," chimed in Yadira and Samantha, who had also approached, clearly confused. "Lady, you're the one who facilitated everything. Why deny it?" As Lady Wilson stood surrounded by the three of them, she was overwhelmed by their unpleasant odor, which made her feel dizzy and caused her to cough. The trio had neglected personal hygiene, especially during the winter months when their thick clothing made it easier to overlook cleanliness. As a result, they carried a strong body odor. With the three of them so close, the smell was particularly overpowering. Covering her nose, Lady Wilson exclaimed, "Gina, you've really misunderstood. I didn't do any of those things." Gina, showing her large yellow teeth in a grin, replied, "Oh, lady, I know you have a good heart and might not want to acknowledge everything, but it's okay. After all, we inmates share a bond. Now that the three of us are out, we'll stick by your side and take care of you." Samantha quickly added, "That's right, lady. While you were away, we arranged for a room. Fortunately, your villa has plenty of space, and we can all live here together. You'll be like a mother to us." "What?" Lady Wilson exclaimed, her anger flaring. "You've assigned rooms? Who gave you the authority to do that?" Samantha, startled by Lady Wilson's sudden outburst, replied, "But, lady, you invited us to come live with you. We should have a share of the rooms." Shaken with rage, Lady Wilson responded, "This is my house. I might overlook you trespassing, but who gave you the right to divide my personal space? Get out immediately." At that moment, Wendy arrived and quietly interjected, "Grandma, we're short on help right now. Let them assist us for a bit, and they can leave once Dad and brother are feeling better." Lady Wilson waved her hand dismissively and retorted coldly, "I won't allow them to stay here without proper help. They smell terrible. Keeping them here for even a moment longer would be unbearable. Besides, Mr. Webb will arrange for a much more capable assistant, someone 10,000 times better than these three smelly old ladies." Turning sharply to Gina, she ordered, "You three, leave my house at once." Gina stood there, stunned. Chapter 1948. In disbelief, she turned to Lady Wilson and exclaimed, "Lady, are you really going to let us leave? This is outrageous. Remember, we were in the detention center, and despite that, the three of us have been looking after you and offering our help. Even your daughter-in-law Elaine, we supported you in teaching her." Lady Wilson replied sharply, "Did I ever ask for your help? When did I say you should teach Elaine a lesson? You only started hitting her because you thought she was upset." Gina felt a wave of disappointment wash over her. "Lady Wilson, you're truly flipping your stance faster than turning a page. Back in the detention center, we supported you so much, and I never expected this would be the outcome." With a blank expression, Lady Wilson responded, "I apologize if I've let you down, but consider this a lesson for you. Recognize your place in the future, and stop dreaming." Gina clenched her teeth and challenged, "Oh really, lady? Is that how you speak? Fine. I won't leave. What do you think you can do to me?" Yadira and Samantha chimed in, "Exactly. We're not going anywhere." Lady Wilson was taken aback by their defiance and coldly declared, "You three are making a mistake. Have you looked in the mirror? With your filthy selves, do you really think you belong in this Thompson First villa? If people like you can stay here, it's truly a sign of short-sightedness." She continued with an air of arrogance, "When I was in the detention center, I was forced to endure a chicken coop for 2 days. You really think I'm like you?" Yadira shouted back, "Lady Wilson. Remember, even a troubled phoenix is better than a chicken. Don't push it, you old hag. If you provoke us, we won't hesitate to take you down, even if you're old. Samantha quickly agreed, yes. Just like we dealt with Elaine before, we can handle you the same way now. With a smirk, Lady Wilson replied, go ahead, try to hit me. The moment you do, I'll call the police, and you'll be arrested. Gina felt her temper flare as she clenched her fists, itching to throw a punch at Lady Wilson. However, she recalled the prison guard's warnings about needing to abide by the law while out on bail. She thought, they said we might face a longer sentence if we cause trouble. I can't let that happen. Taking a deep breath, she said coldly, Lady, it's clear you have nothing to do with us. If you believe we can't rise to your level, can we leave? Lady Wilson nodded, yes, it's best if you leave quickly, or I will call the police. Gina gritted her teeth and addressed her companions, all right, we got out early, so there's no point in dragging this out. Let's pack our things and go. Though Yadira and Samantha were reluctant, they feared returning to the detention center and reluctantly agreed, nodding angrily. The three of them gathered their belongings in frustration and prepared to leave with their blankets. Lady Wilson watched over them, fanning her hand in front of her nose with a look of disgust. Oh, it smells so bad. Hurry up and get as far away as you can. If you dare come back, I'll call the police and have you arrested. Gina felt a deep sense of humiliation but, fearing trouble, could only grit her teeth and say to her friends, let's go. Just then, 7 or 8 strong men barged in from outside. Noticing the tense situation, one of them asked, what's going on? Where are you three headed? Gina, thinking these intimidating men were called by Lady Wilson, nervously urged, please, don't be rash. We're leaving. The leader responded coldly, where do you think you're going? Mr. Webb has said that from now on, this house is your home. This property belongs to him, not to Lady Wilson. She's merely borrowing it like you. So, as long as Mr. Webb is on your side, she doesn't have the authority to kick you out. Chapter 1949. Lady Wilson found herself in a whirlwind of confusion. Was it really Donald who had made arrangements for Gina and the others? What on earth did Donald mean? Did he imply that these 3 helpers were organized on his behalf? Just as Lady Wilson was regaining her composure, Gina excitedly interjected, wait, big brother, is what you said actually true? Can we really live here? The man nodded in affirmation, absolutely. Didn't the driver take your fingerprints earlier? Consider this your new home from now on. Lady Wilson, in a state of desperation, shouted, brother. Please inform Mr. Webb that we do not want these helpers. These 3 women are just peasants and can't even read well. What good are they to us? We need professional nurses, preferably someone who can cook and do laundry. The man retorted coldly, lady, I see that while you may be old and not particularly attractive, you have quite the imagination. Still trying to negotiate with us? Don't you know your position? Blushing from the reprimand, Lady Wilson stammered, then we can do without help, right? Let the 3 of them go. We can handle everything ourselves. Is that acceptable? That's not an option. As I mentioned earlier, these 3 are now part of your household. They will reside here just like you. You don't have the authority to dismiss them. Gina overheard this and, glancing at Lady Wilson with a smirk, remarked, oh, Lady Wilson, you really think highly of yourself. You've barely settled in, and you're already trying to act important. I didn't realize this grand villa isn't even yours. What a surprise. Here I thought you owned it, but it turns out we're all just renting. Exactly. Yadira chimed in disdainfully. You were so boastful just a moment ago, but it seems you were just putting on a show. Samantha added, I still see you as a phoenix. Living in such a splendid place, yet now I realize you're just a pheasant borrowing the phoenix's nest. Lady Wilson's face darkened. This villa indeed belonged to Donald. He had granted them permission to stay, but if he decided otherwise, they would have to leave. In essence, if Donald wanted Gina and her companions to stay, Lady Wilson had no authority to object. Gina suddenly felt a rush of excitement. She declared to the others, "From now on, we are residents of this magnificent villa. Those old pheasants pretending to be phoenixes no longer have the power to kick us out." "Yes," the other two exclaimed, equally thrilled. With the dynamics of their situation clarified, they felt a sense of relief. Not only had they managed to quell Lady Wilson's arrogance, but they also secured their rightful place in the villa. At that moment, Gina remembered something important and turned to the brawny man, asking, "Brother, I have a question for you." The man replied, "Go ahead." Chapter 1950. Gina exclaimed, "Previously, we checked out the rooms in this villa and noticed that the spacious, well-appointed rooms were occupied by the Wilson family. All we could find were the corner rooms. Since the three of us are here as equals, can we request a room reallocation?" Samantha quickly chimed in, excitement evident in her voice, "Absolutely. I want a large bedroom that faces south as well." The man, observing the unfolding excitement, smiled and said, "Of course, we don't mind how you choose to rearrange things among yourselves." "That's fantastic." Gina responded immediately. "I'll take the large bedroom on the third floor. Whoever is in that room, you need to move out now. Otherwise, don't say I didn't warn you, I'll throw your things out." Lady Wilson retorted angrily, "How dare you? The large bedroom on the third floor is mine. You can't just take it." Gina sneered back, "You stubborn woman, get out of the way. I've shown you kindness, and we genuinely came here hoping to treat you like a mother. But it seems your heart is made of stone. Now that Mr. Webb has spoken, we'll do this the hard way. I want that third floor room, and you should consider whether you can stand against me." Lady Wilson felt a wave of despair wash over her. Not only was she desperate, but she also felt a deep sense of regret. It dawned on her that these three individuals were actually the allies Donald had arranged to support her. If only she had known, she wouldn't have yelled at them earlier or tried to send them away. Though the three of them might not have seemed powerful at first glance, they had enough self-respect and capability to command attention. But now, she had alienated them completely. And here they were, still present. Gina was still intent on seizing her room. Wasn't she just digging her own grave? With that thought, Lady Wilson felt an uncomfortable knot in her stomach. Swallowing her pride, she pleaded with Gina, "Oh, Gina. That was just a misunderstanding. Please, let's not be at odds. I'm old, a bit confused, and I won't be around for much longer. Sometimes I say things I don't mean, please don't take it to heart. I've always thought of you as a daughter." With a look of disgust, Gina shot back, "Now you want to be friendly? Spare me. I see through your tricks. We're going to be living under the same roof, so you'd better not provoke me. Otherwise, I can make your life a living nightmare." Lady Wilson was taken aback and stammered, You're not afraid of repercussions?" At that moment, the burly man interjected, "Don't worry. Mr. Webb has significant influence, and this matter will be resolved." Hearing this, Gina felt a rush of confidence, almost as if she had received a boost of energy. She smirked and said, "Then I'm sorry, Lady Wilson, but from now on, the large room on the third floor is mine." Lady Wilson felt like she was about to crumble. The third-floor bedroom was the finest in the villa. When she first moved in, she had instantly fallen in love with it. It was incredibly comfortable and unlike any other room. Moreover, Lady Wilson had a deep appreciation for the good life. She had planned to enjoy living in such a lovely room. Seeing Gina intent on taking it from her, she grew increasingly anxious, crying out, "Gina! Look at my age. I might not have much time left, so please let me enjoy that better room before I go and have a good rebirth." In a fit of anger, Gina stepped forward, slapped Lady Wilson, and coldly retorted, "You're just full of nonsense. My mother suffered and passed away after we brought her back from the hospital, where they said there was no hope. By your logic, shouldn't my mother have had a better next life too?"